Chapter 430. Jiang Zimo had already done all he could. Unfortunately, he was still lacking in luck. He was fated to not be able to enter the ancient desolate tower. Xiaoqian smiled helplessly and said, "It looks like the ancient desolate tower does not welcome me. It was just an ancient desolate pass." Unexpectedly, a dazzling shadow panther king appeared. Xiaoqian calmed himself and headed for the Heavenly Extermination Union branch. Since he no longer had a chance, he should not continue to be dejected. Not being able to enter the ancient desolate tower did not mean that he could not reach the peak of cultivation. No matter what, he could not let his mental state fall. The number of people in the Heavenly Extermination Union branch was much smaller than when Xiaoqian arrived yesterday. This was somewhat surprising. When the old man behind the counter on the second floor saw Xiaoqian arrive, his face was filled with surprise. He received the illusionary grass from Xiaoqian and smiled, "Brat, you managed to escape from a dazzling shadow panther king. Your strength is truly extraordinary." Xiaoqian's expression changed. He said angrily, "You knew long ago that there was a dazzling shadow panther king. Why did you not warn me? Do you know that you nearly caused my death?" The old man shrugged and smiled innocently, "Young man, don't be so angry. Did you ask for my permission?" Xiaoqian felt very depressed. This was a matter of life and death. Even if he did not ask, he should have warned him. The old man was clearly acting shamelessly. Since he could not do anything to him, Xiaoqian could not be bothered with him anymore. He said, "Stop speaking nonsense. Give me the ancient desolate pass." The black-robed old man laughed loudly. He took out a white medallion and handed it to Xiaoqian. He said, "This is the medallion I just made. It is all rank 1. However, although there is no reward for your mission, it is already recorded." Xiaoqian received the medallion and looked at it. The words, Heavenly Extermination Union, were written on the front of the white medallion. Xiaoqian's name was carved on the back. After the black-robed old man handed the ancient desolate pass to Xiaoqian, he took out an engraved card and said, "This engraved card is an extra reward for you." After all, this illusionary grass mission was quite a headache. "You helped me solve a big problem. What is it?" Xiaoqian looked at the old man and asked suspiciously. The old man held the engraved card and gently knocked on the table. He smiled and said, "What is it?" "It is what you want now." Xiaoqian couldn't help but laugh. He looked at the old man with interest and smiled, "Interesting, do you know what I want now?" The old man said casually, "The ancient desolate tower." Xiaoqian's expression could not help but change. He did not think too much about how the old man knew. He pointed at the engraved card and said, "This thing can allow me to enter the ancient desolate tower?" The old man shook his head and said, "No, they only gave you a chance to compete fairly with others. Do you know why you did not receive an invitation from the Heavenly Extermination Union? It is because your cultivation is too low. White-robed bladesman Xiaoqian, you are quite famous in the great Qin nation. The upper echelon of the Heavenly Extermination Union noticed you long ago. However, at that time, your cultivation was too low. Even now, you are only an inferior grade martial king. The minimum requirement for an invitation is to be a medial grade martial king. As for whether to give you an invitation or not, the Heavenly Extermination Union split into 2 factions. They debated for a long time. You are very lucky. I happen to be on the faction that supports you." Xiaoqian had not expected such a small invitation to have so many tricks up his sleeves. "So, you did not tell me about the mission for the illusionary grass. Is this a test for me?" The old man nodded and said, "That's right. In fact, to obtain this ancient desolate pass, you just have to complete an ordinary mission. No matter what you choose in the end, I will give you the mission for the illusionary grass. You did not disappoint me. You were able to escape from the hands of the dazzling Shadow Panther King. You are definitely strong enough." Right now, Xiaoqian felt like he had gained something and then lost it. He originally thought that the ancient desolate tower was far away from him. Unexpectedly, he found an opportunity that was even more reliable than Jiang Zimo's. Xiao Qin stretched his hand out to take the engraved card. However, the old man did not rush to hand it over. He smiled and said, "Don't blame me for not warning you this time. By taking this engraved card, you will only gain an opportunity. It does not guarantee you entry into the ancient desolate tower. The test you will meet might really take your life." Xiao Qin did not hesitate to take the engraved card. He said resolutely, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Tell me the details." The black-robed old man muttered to himself for a while before telling Xiao Qin the rules of this selection in full detail. There were simply too many geniuses from the four nations and the ancient desolate land. Even though the minimum requirement was to be a medial-grade martial king under the age of 24, there were still more than 1,000 people. This was more than twice as many as the previous selections. Hence, the selection changed from 1 round to 2. The peak geniuses from the four nations were split into 4 groups and brought to the 4 main islands of the Heavenly Extermination Lake. The first test was to obtain 60 victories in the A-rank matches of the main island's wrestling city. Everyone would have a chance to win 100 matches. The old man said indifferently, "The rank A wrestling rings are second only to the rank S wrestling rings. Aside from half-step martial monarchs and above, cultivators and demonic beasts of any cultivation realm will appear. Furthermore, these 60 victories have to be completed within 6 days. Completing it within 3 days meant that one would have to fight at least 10 matches a day. Furthermore, the cultivation of the opponents in these 10 matches would not be much weaker than one's." Xiao Qin thought to himself, "If this is the case, I will have to eliminate half of the people in the first round of the test." The old man continued. "After passing the first test, the remaining cultivators will gather in Desolate City. After that, they will compete in the arena for points. The 20 strongest participants will obtain the qualifications to enter the ancient Desolate Tower. Among the 1,000 geniuses of the various nations, only 20 would be selected." The odds were small. It was easy to imagine how intense the competition would be. Xiao Qin felt suspicious as he asked, "Why not invite the geniuses of the great Jin nation to the ancient desolate tower?" This time, the people who came were all cultivators of the four nations and the local clans of the Heavenly Extermination Lake. None of them were geniuses of the great Jin nation. Xiao Qin had his suspicions for a long time. The old man smiled and explained for a long time. Only then did Xiao Qin slowly understand. Aside from the great Jin nation, the other four nations had very few spirit veins. The density of their spiritual energy was worlds apart from that of the great Jin nation. Hence, in every 5-nation youth competition, most of the top 100 of the Tianwu ranking were from the great Jin nation. The higher they went, the fewer people there were from the other 4 nations. Needless to say, the top 10 contestants were all taken up by the warriors of the Jin nation almost every time. No matter how talented the cultivators of the other 4 nations were, very few could break this rule. At best, they could only make it to the top 20. The Myriad Fiend Palace controls half of the authority behind the Heavenly Extermination Union, and the other half is split between the 4 nations. The Great Jin Nation has nothing to do with it. Do you think that the other 4 nations would allow him to enter the ancient desolate tower after being suppressed so miserably by the Great Jin Nation? Xiao Qin said with some disbelief, "Are the geniuses of the Great Jin Nation really that strong?" The old man had a grave expression as he said, "They are stronger than you imagine. With your current strength, it would be difficult for you to rank within the top 500 of the Great Jin Nation's younger generation." Xiao Qin did not refute this. He acknowledged this point as well. However, he did not feel too dispirited. All along, Xiao Qin had never thought that he was weaker than anyone else, even the geniuses of the Great Jin Nation. All he lacked was time. As long as he had enough time, he would trample on all these people and rise up in this budding era of geniuses. I have spoken enough nonsense. I will not speak any further. When you go to Wrestling City, hand this engraved card to the leader of the Heavenly Extermination Union. He will make the necessary arrangements for you. The old man waved his hand and dismissed Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not linger. He took his leave and quickly flew towards Longyang Island. Longyang Island was the core of the southern group of islands. Its position was equivalent to the capital of the Great Qin nation. It was more than 2,500 kilometers away from Heavenly Spring Island. After checking the map carefully, Xiao Chen muttered, "Jiang Zimo and the others should have been gone for more than 6 hours. There are many of them, so they will not be very fast. I might be able to catch up to them." After leaving the city, Xiao Chen soared into the air and tore off the blue strip of cloth on his forehead. Xiao! With a thought, a scarlet light lit up. The Scarlet Massacre throne appeared from nowhere. A thick scarlet cloud churned under the throne. The Massacre throne only needed to exhaust the state of massacre in order to fly at an extremely fast speed. If one did not worry about the exhaustion, the Massacre throne could reach Mach 4. In the future, when the cultivation of the state of massacre increased, the speed would increase even more. However, the state of massacre was normally used for combat. If it was used for flying, it would be inferior in combat. Hence, under normal circumstances, Xiao Chen would not use the Scarlet Throne to fly. At this moment, the situation was urgent. Xiao Chen could not care so much. He sat on the throne and rode the scarlet cloud in the sky. A strong wind blew from the front. Xiao Chen leaned on the armrest and propped up his chin, appearing relaxed. After all, he did not need to exhaust his essence. He only needed to exhaust the scarlet pool in the throne. Furthermore, this was obtained after killing people. It had nothing to do with Xiao Chen's body. In order to avoid meeting other cultivators and attracting unnecessary trouble, Xiao Chen flew up to 10,000 meters. As Xiao Chen flew at full speed, the scarlet pool in the throne shrank at a visible rate. After flying for a long time, only a small portion of the scarlet pool remained. Then, Xiao Chen recalled the scarlet throne into his sea of consciousness. It was not easy to replenish the scarlet pool. After exhausting it, it would be even more difficult to replenish it. Xiao Chen was already close to Longyang Island. If he still could not catch up to Jiang Zimo's group, there was no need to force himself. It was better to keep some state of massacre as a backup. Xiao Chen slowly descended. The silhouette of a huge island appeared before Xiao Chen. This was the main island of the south, Longyang Island. The number of cultivators in the sky gradually increased. Most of them were in groups of 2 or 3, flying quickly towards the island. Xiao Chen looked up and discovered that all the cultivators who came to Longyang Island were flying in the same direction. This was the famous wrestling city of Longyang Island. It was a city made up of wrestling arenas of various sizes. The entire city was filled with blood and violence. Chapter 431. There were 4 other wrestling cities like this in the entire ancient desolate land. They were located on the other 3 main islands. Strange, there are more than 10 cities on Longyang Island. Why are all these people heading in the direction of wrestling cities? Xiao Chen felt confused as he looked at the departing figures. I really can't figure it out. Wrestling City has not held a large-scale rank A wrestling ring in the past 10 years. Who knows what is going on this time? They actually held dozens of matches. Hee. Who cares? The rank A wrestling rings are a great opportunity to earn money. If you win 10 matches in a row, you will be able to obtain 5,000 medial grade spirit stones. If you win 20 matches in a row, you will even get an inferior grade secret treasure. I heard that the rewards this time will be increased. I wonder if that is true. If it is, then they will be spending a lot of money. A group of cultivators who passed by Xiao Chen spoke excitedly about why they were going to Wrestling City. When Xiao Chen heard this, his expression sank. He looked at the sky and saw the cultivators rushing towards Wrestling City. He muttered, the news has spread so far. It looks like I will meet many famous cultivators of the ancient desolate land in the first round. The full moon hung high in the sky, and the sky was dotted with stars. Under the bright moonlight, most of the stars were covered up. In a residence within Wrestling City, the 4 people in charge of the Heavenly Extermination Union led more than 200 geniuses from various places to a banquet. From tomorrow onwards, the cultivators below would start a cruel competition. They would be fighting high-intensity battles for 6 consecutive days. Hence, the people in charge of the Heavenly Extermination Union decided to hold a banquet to let everyone relax. At the same time, they would take the opportunity to answer some questions. Oldly sat in the middle of the hall. Beside him were his 3 assistants. A long wooden table was placed in front of the 4 of them. There were also long wooden tables placed against the walls on both sides. Wine and snacks were placed on the tables. There were 3 or 4 cultivators behind each table. The cultivators chatted happily with each other, and the atmosphere was very lively. Seniorly, I heard that in the next 5-nation youth competition, the top contestants of the Tianwu ranking will be able to go to the upper realm. On the right side, a young cultivator put down the wine cup in his hand and respectfully asked Oldly, who was on the stage. As soon as these words were spoken, the hall instantly quietened down, and everyone's gazes converged onto Seniorly. The so-called upper realm was a mysterious place to everyone. Rumor had it that the land of the 3 holy masters was in such a world. No one knew what kind of world it was. In the Sky Martial continent, it was said that only those with the strength of Emperor Wu could break through the void and go to the upper realm to have a look. Before reaching Emperor Wu's level, if one wanted to go up and take a look, they would have to participate in the 5-nation youth competition. Of course, not every 5-nation youth competition had such an opportunity. Only when the geniuses of the various nations reached their peak would they attract the attention of the upper realm. Then, they would be given such an opportunity. However, in the past few thousand years, there had been no news of anyone obtaining the qualifications to enter the upper realm from the 5-nation youth competition. The earliest 5-nation youth competition was 4,000 years ago. It was said that the young geniuses of the Thunder King's generation obtained such an opportunity in the 5-nation youth competition. 4,000 years was too long. The matter of that time had already become a legend. Now, the young cultivators could only make some guesses, they did not dare to confirm whether it was true or not. However, this 5-nation youth competition had already revealed some suspicions. Not only would the various nations and powers of the Tianwu continent send people to participate, but even the distant shallow seas of the boundless sea had already become a legend. Even the 4 shallow seas in the distant boundless ocean were planning to send people to participate. If it wasn't for the fact that they had obtained the opportunity to go to the previous World Championships, they definitely wouldn't have caused such a huge commotion. When Oldly heard this, he smiled gently and said, "What I know, the supreme elders of the older generation of the sects behind you know as well. Since they did not tell you, naturally, I will not tell you either." "Why?" everyone asked, feeling confused. Oldly shook his head and said, "It is not the time yet. Now is the budding age of geniuses. Your generation has not matured yet. Telling you will only bring you harm. I can only say that if you all do your best, those with great luck will be pleasantly surprised." Jin Wuji and Ding Fengqiu sat at a table to the right, at the back. Jin Wuji felt suspicious as he said, "This is strange. Why does your tone sound exactly the same as Master's? First senior brother, Master dotes on you the most. Do you have any inside information?" Ding Fengqiu took a sip of wine. A deep look flashed in his eyes, making him look very mysterious. Ding Fengqiu put down his wine cup and shook his head. He smiled and said, "I'm not sure. Don't overthink this. If you are not strong enough, you might not end up well there." The banquet continued. During this time, someone asked about the rules of the Rank A wrestling ring. Oldly answered all of them, not hiding anything at all. "Once you go to the wrestling ring, this old man will not be in charge there. Let me make things clear first. If there is any danger, just retreat. Don't try to be brave. As for the rules, they are the rules of the wrestling ring. You do not have any special privileges. Just think of a way to obtain 60 victories. Dong! 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 Just at this moment, urgent footsteps could be heard. An attendant outside the hall held an engraved card in his hand. He quickly walked over to Old Li and whispered something into his ear. Old Li's expression changed slightly. He instructed, "Go down first and bring him up. I'll take a look at him personally." A few of Old Li's assistants looked at the engraved card and said in astonishment, "Elder Huang's engraved card. Who is he protecting?" Old Li casually put away the engraved card. His expression was somewhat sullen. He said indifferently, "It's that brat who objected so strongly back then. I want to know why this old Huang wants to protect him so many times." When the outstanding talents in the hall saw Old Li's expression suddenly turn sullen, they could not figure out what was going on. They felt that something was going to happen. The atmosphere suddenly became a little strange, and the hall became extremely quiet. Everyone looked at the door outside the hall, wanting to see who had offended Old Man Li. Mu Xinya whispered to Jiang Zimo, who was beside her, "Could it be that the person you spoke of is here again?" Jiang Zimo said softly, "It is hard to say. However, if it is really him, I will not be of much help. This elderly is not from our myriad fiend palace's faction." Ta! Ta! Soft footsteps came from outside the door. Shao Chen, dressed in blue robes and holding the lunar shadow saber in his hand, entered the hall with a calm expression. Shao Chen looked around from the corner of his eyes and scanned the faces of everyone in the hall. He saw a few familiar faces. There was Xia Shiyan, whom he had fought with before. There was Jiang Zimo, whom he had met before. The silver-haired girl beside Jiang Zimo seemed familiar, but Shao Chen could not recall where he had seen her before. There were also his two old friends, Jin Wuji and Ding Fengqiu. Unexpectedly, they were here as well. When Shao Chen felt Jin Wuji's hostile gaze, he ignored it. The atmosphere in the hall did not seem right. Shao Chen did not think too much about it. He raised his head and performed a cupped fist salute to Old Li. Junior Shao Chen greets senior. However, Old Li ignored Shao Chen's words. He smiled indifferently and said, "I personally believe that cultivation realm is the foundation of a cultivator. Back then, I was the one who suggested the threshold for medial grade martial king. I really want to know why an inferior grade martial king like you is here. Are you seeking death?" Shao Chen's face sank. He remembered the words of the Heavenly Extermination Union's old man. It looked like he was unlucky. The old man in front of him was the one who opposed him back then. Go back to where you came from. Enter the wrestling ring and renew the life and death contract. Come back again when you are a medial grade martial king. It would be a pity if you fall here at such a young age. Don't think that after being famous in the great Qin nation for a while, you have great talent and can ignore the rules. The great Qin nation is always the weakest of the 5 great nations. When the people below heard Old Li's words, their expressions became playful. It turned out that this person had used his connections to enter and compete with them for a spot. Unfortunately, his backer was not that strong. This Old Li did not buy it and ended up being humiliated instead. A quick-witted young cultivator could tell that Old Li did not like Shao Chen. He immediately followed along and mocked, "An inferior grade martial king wants to compete with us for a spot in the ancient desolate tower? You overestimate yourself." The others immediately agreed, "Indeed, go back. If you die in the wrestling ring, you will have nothing left. This is not the great Qin nation. You are a peak genius there. Here, you are nothing." Shao Chen's expression remained calm. He did not care about the words around him. He only committed them to memory. He looked straight at Old Li and said, "Cultivation is indeed the foundation of a cultivator. However, combat techniques, martial techniques, and cultivation techniques are equally important. They might even be more important than cultivation." Old Li snorted coldly and said, "Do you think you are qualified to speak to me? I do not need you to teach me what is the most important." Scram immediately. Jiang Zimo could not stand it any longer. He said, "Senior Li, as far as I know, Elder Huang took out his engraved card. He has the authority to recommend someone." Old Li seemed to be afraid of Jiang Zimo's identity. He did not refute him. What Jiang Zimo said was the truth. However, back then, he was the one who proposed the requirement to become a medial grade martial king. He was also the one who vetoed sending an invitation to Xiao Chen. Now that he had to agree to Xiao Chen's request, he felt uncomfortable in his heart. If he could persuade Xiao Chen to withdraw, he could say that Xiao Chen withdrew of his own accord. Elder Huang would not be able to do anything to him. However, looking at the current situation, Xiao Chen was very patient. Furthermore, Jiang Zimo had spoken up for him. It would not be good to chase him away. When Old Li's gaze fell on Xiao Chen, he thought of a countermeasure. He smiled gently and said, "Very well, I will give you a chance. Since you say that combat techniques and cultivation techniques are more important than cultivation, then choose a person in this hall. Then choose someone from this hall. If you can defeat him within 10 moves, I'll give you this opportunity. Let everyone see just how brilliant your combat skills are." The hall was very quiet. Everyone looked at Xiao Chen with eyes filled with schadenfreude. Clearly, this person had offended Old Li. It was impossible for Xiao Chen to defeat them within 10 moves. The weakest cultivator here was a peak medial grade martial king. Chapter 432. They were all top-notch geniuses in their respective sections. They did not lack high-ranked cultivation techniques or martial techniques. As for the so-called combat techniques, they did not think that they were inferior to Xiao Chen. Jin Wuji laughed in a carefree manner, to think that this brat would have such a day. After being humiliated by the Heavenly Extermination Union's elders, the anger in his heart has lessened somewhat. A girl beside Xia Xian also smiled and said in a soft voice, "Senior sister, who is this person?" "He is just an inferior grade martial king. Why is he here?" However, Xia Xian's expression did not change much. She said, "Xiao Rou, don't think that way. He is not an ordinary inferior grade martial king." A trace of killing intent flashed in Xiao Chen's calm eyes. He looked at Old Li and said, "May I know senior's name?" Old Li said indifferently, "This old man is Li Shuzhu. If you are afraid, you can leave. If you stay, you have to agree to my request." Li Shuzhu, Li Shuzhu. He firmly remembered this name in his heart. Xiao Chen swore that he would return today's humiliation 100-fold in the future. Without changing his expression, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "As you wish. I hope you will not regret your decision today." Li Shuzhu smiled coldly and said, "I will regret it. This old man has seen many geniuses, and I've seen even more people like you who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even if I give you 10 years, you won't be a threat to me." Bang! Li Shuzhu slammed the table heavily and snorted coldly, "I will let whoever defeats him pass the first round." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd instantly burst into an uproar. All of them rushed towards Xiao Chen at the same time. If he directly passed the first round, not only would it be a pity that he could save a lot of energy, but he could also observe the various trump cards of others and not reveal his own trump card. There were many benefits, and they would be able to gain a great advantage in the second round of the arena battles. There was no one who wouldn't want this opportunity. Xiao. However, a figure rushed ahead of everyone else. It was the Heavenly Sword Sect's Jin Wuji. His gaze was fixed on Xiao Chen. The moment Li Shuzhu spoke, Jin Wuji's figure appeared before Xiao Chen with a "so" sound. Ding Fengqiu's hand hovered in the air. He had just been about to stop Jin Wuji when he withdrew his hand. In such a short period of time, he had actually burst forth with such great speed, not giving him a chance to react at all. "I can't even stop him. How foolish." "Fine, if you want to send yourself over as a stepping stone, it's up to you." Ding Fengqiu shook his head as he drained the wine in his cup in one gulp. However, this was a good opportunity for him to see what cultivation realm Xiao Chen had reached. Jin Wuji's killing chi spread out uncontrollably. He smiled somewhat savagely and said, "Xiao Chen, you did not expect such a day to come, did you? Back then, you sneak attacked me and trampled on me. You definitely did not expect that one day, I would personally bury your hopes." Ha! Jin Wuji laughed heartily. Back then, on the island, he had been stepped on by Xiao Chen. He had not even been able to retaliate. That was simply a nightmare. After that, when he cultivated several times, Xiao Chen's appearance would appear in his mind, causing him to break down. Jin Wuji knew that this was a heart demon. Xiao Chen had already become his heart demon. If he did not deal with him personally, the heart demon would exist forever. His inner demons would always exist, and his strength would always be stagnant, and there would even be the danger of regressing. Now, as long as he could endure 10 moves, he would be able to destroy Xiao Chen's hopes of entering the ancient desolate tower. This was undoubtedly a good opportunity to deal with his heart demon. How could he not be in a good mood? Jin Wuji withdrew his smile and said with a sullen expression, "White-robed bladesman, today, I will let you know that if you had not sneak attacked me, you would not have stood a chance against me." Xiao Chen flipped his palm and the lunar shadow saber appeared in his right hand. He said indifferently, "What a joke. Do you really think it was only because of a sneak attack?" When Mu Xinya saw Xiao Chen take out the lunar shadow saber from the universe ring, her expression fluctuated. She muttered, "It really is him." Song Kei's palm strike did not kill him. From the moment Xiao Chen stepped into the hall, Mu Xinya's gaze never left Xiao Chen. This was because Xiao Chen's temperament was too similar to that of the person in her memories. Calm, decisive, and unhurried. No matter what happened, his expression would not change. No matter who he met, he would not be servile or overbearing. At this moment, when Xiao Chen took out the lunar shadow saber, the saber from Mu Xinya's memories, she could finally confirm Xiao Chen's identity. "Senior sister, do you think this Xiao Chen can win?" Xia Xian's junior sister, who was beside her, asked. Xia Xian replied uncertainly, "It is hard to say. His overall strength is definitely stronger than Jin Wuji's. However, it would be too difficult to defeat him within 10 moves. Even I am not confident." Most of the cultivators present felt the same way. This Jin Wuji is lucky. He does not need to go through the first round. Li Xiuzhu sat calmly in his seat. He had a faint smile on his face. He did not have any expectations for Xiao Chen. Such an ignorant cultivator would not be able to achieve much in the future. Chi! Suddenly, a resonant sword hum resounded in the hall. Jin Wuji finally could not endure it any longer and made the first move. The tip of the sword pointed at Xiao Chen. The long sword trembled continuously, and the air rippled like water. A sharp metal concept was emitted from the sword's edge. Before the sword moved, the wind from the sword had already arrived. An unparalleled sharp sword intent shot towards Xiao Chen. It tore through the air and entered Xiao Chen's forehead, trying to break his heart and disrupt his mental state. The state of metal had only one attribute, sharpness. It was incredibly sharp. Based on Jin Wuji's aura, it was clear that he had cultivated the state of metal to great perfection. There is no more chance. Jin Wuji's state of metal has already reached great perfection. Although it has not reached peak consummation, it is impossible to defeat him within 10 moves, Xia Xian sighed. The others in the hall all shook their heads. This battle was unfair from the start. Now, Xiao Chen had no chance at all. Li Xiuzhu's frown relaxed, and he relaxed completely. He muttered to himself, "The result is already decided." When Xiao Chen felt that sharp sword intent, he had an idea. He circulated the qi that he had not used before. Ever since Xiao Chen condensed his martial spirit, he had experienced failures, setbacks, tribulations, perplexities, and worries. This was the qi that only a bladesman possessed. Dang! A melodious clang resounded in the air. It was like divine weapons clashing in the air, giving off a heavy vibrating sound that spread into the surroundings. Jin Wuji's sword intent was immediately blocked. The state of metal in the sword intent also vanished like smoke in thin air. Saber intent? When they heard the heavy vibrating sound and felt the qi from Xiao Chen's body, some of the people in the hall felt suspicious. Sabers were formed from swords. Saber intent was also derived from sword intent. However, it was even harder to comprehend than sword intent. If the chances of comprehending sword intent were 1 in 100,000, then the chances of comprehending saber intent were 1 in a million. Furthermore, in the past few thousand years, no one had heard of anyone comprehending saber intent before the age of 30. The 10 great bladesmen of the ancient desolate land had all comprehended saber intent at the age of 40. Only the generation of the Thunder King had such a talented bladesman. If one wanted to trace this back, it would be the Tianwu dynasty, or even earlier, the ancient era. Ding Fengqiu's expression relaxed slightly. He said, "Fortunately, it is not saber intent. It is just a strand of qi." However, just a strand of qi can resist Jin Wuji's sword intent. How powerful would saber intent be? The others in the hall also heaved a sigh of relief. If it was really saber intent, it would be a huge blow. Jin Wuji is not weak. If I want to defeat him under normal circumstances, I would have to fight him for more than 100 moves. If I want to defeat Jin Wuji within 10 moves, I have to catch him off guard. Then, I have to charge forward like a ferocious tiger and crush him in one go, not giving him time to react. Coincidentally, I have a set of saber techniques that can be used in one go, the rushing thunder chop. Although it is of a lower rank, Xiao Chen's essence and state can make up for it. It is sufficient to deal with Jin Wuji. After scattering Jin Wuji's sword intent, Xiao Chen took advantage of the moment his opponent was stunned to raise his right foot by half a meter. Then, he stomped down ferociously. Bang! This stomp merged vital qi and essence. Xiao Chen did not hold back at all. It contained 350 tons of force, and a crack immediately appeared in the ground. Boom! 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 The entire hall shook. All the wine on the wooden table shattered with a ka-ca-ca sound. The crack quickly extended towards Jin Wuji. Hu Qi! Hu Qi! A sharp energy that was half a meter tall soared up from the crack. As the crack extended, it charged straight at Jin Wuji. It was like a sharp knife trying to split Jin Wuji in half. The stunned expression on Jin Wuji's face turned into one of extreme shock. He had not expected Xiao Chen to suddenly make such a move. This was what it meant by catching the enemy off guard and attacking them when they were unprepared. Jin Wuji's body shook along with the ground. When he saw the energy rushing at him, he quickly dodged to the side. The energy passed by Jin Wuji and continued towards Li Xiuzhu, who was behind him. Li Xiuzhu remained expressionless as he stomped on the ground. The sharp energy instantly shattered into nothing. At the same time, the crack in the ground stopped. When it reached Li Xiuzhu's table, it was difficult to move an inch further. Xiao! Jin Wuji had just stabilized his footing when he saw Xiao Chen's right hand grasping his saber hilt. Xiao Chen's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he rushed at him. Dong! 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 Xiao Chen's footsteps sounded like thunder. He moved as fast as lightning, creating a strong wind. Jin Wuji could not keep his eyes open. Jin Wuji had a bad feeling in his heart. He pushed off the ground and retreated. Can I retreat? It is already too late. Xiao Chen snorted coldly in his heart. His right hand, which was on the saber hilt, swung out. Drawing the saber. It was like a bolt of lightning had shot out from the scabbard. The purple light was so dazzling that it hurt everyone's eyes. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Jin Wuji quickly spun his sword and held it horizontally in front of his chest, blocking this sword strike. Dang! The saber and sword clashed, giving off intense sparks and a chi-chi sound. As he ran, Xiao Chen's aura was raised to its peak. On the other hand, Jin Wuji, who had lost the initiative and wanted to retreat, lost most of his aura. Jin Wuji's arm felt numb, and his sword trembled. He nearly lost his grip on it. Arclight Chop. Xiao Qin activated the blood flame shoes, and his speed increased explosively. In an instant, he arrived at Jin Wuji's side. The lunar shadow saber sent out a strange arclight. The arclight flickered with electricity. Chapter 433. Retreat. The arcs of light sealed off all points of attack. There was no weakness at all, there was no way for Jin Wuji to counterattack. Jin Wuji retreated again. No, I cannot retreat anymore. If I do, my momentum will plummet, Jin Wuji thought anxiously. I have to attack and regain control of the rhythm. Jin Wuji's sword trembled as he started to gather his killing move. Just as he was about to attack, he saw Xiao Qin charging at him with his saber. If Jin Wuji did not retreat, his chest would be pierced by Xiao Qin in the next moment, and he would die without a complete corpse. Retreat. How hateful. Jin Wuji felt extremely depressed. He scattered his killing move and retreated once more. Xiao Qin's figure paused in the air. As he looked at the retreating Jin Wuji, it was like he had frozen. Rushing Thunder Chop. In the next moment, there was an explosion behind Xiao Qin. It shook off all the dust on the roof, and his aura instantly soared again. Carrying the boundless might of thunder, Xiao Qin chopped down with his saber. It was like rolling thunder. Jin Wuji was horrified. This saber descended like lightning, not giving him a chance to dodge at all. Its aura locked onto him, as if it knew where he would land. Sword light flashed, and Jin Wuji expended his essence without any regard for his life. He quickly created layers of solid sword screens, trying to block this saber strike. However, his momentum was already exhausted. No matter how strong the sword screens were, they were useless against Xiao Qian's saber strike, which had reached its peak. Bang! 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 The layers of sword screens were easily broken. The surging energy shot out in all directions. The many cultivators quickly made their moves to block. Pu Ci. The saber energy entered Jin Wuji's body, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. His complexion was extremely pale. Rushing Thunder Second Chain Chop. After Xiao Qin landed, he did not hesitate. The lightning attributed energy that he had accumulated for 4 moves burst out ferociously. The electric light on his saber instantly became extremely resplendent. Jin Wuji did his best to block, but he was still knocked back by this saber strike. His clothes were in tatters, and his skin was mangled. Jin Wuji fell miserably to the ground. The electricity on his body had not dissipated yet, crackling non-stop. The surroundings were silent. The martial artists who had previously mocked Xiao Qin were all stunned. Xiao Qin did not even use 10 moves. He only used 5 moves to defeat Jin Wuji. Even if he included that kick, it was only 6 moves. Bang! Li Xiuzhu was so angry that his face turned red. He smashed the wooden table in front of him into wood shavings. He looked at Jin Wuji, who had just climbed up with great difficulty. His eyes were filled with disgust. Trash! You cannot even deal with an inferior grade martial king. What qualifications do you have to participate in the selection? Scram! From a distance, Jin Wuji suffered a heavy blow. He vomited a large mouthful of blood and flew out of the hall. Then, he rolled a few times on the steps before coming to a stop. Li Xiuzhu glared at Xiao Qin before getting up expressionlessly. Without saying anything, he quickly left the place. Li Xiuzhu left in a huff, and his 3 assistants left one after another. Naturally, the banquet ended on an unhappy note. Inside the hall, the outstanding talents from all over no longer looked at Xiao Qin with the same gazes as before. They no longer viewed him as a strong competitor. Their expressions were somewhat depressed. It was not a good thing to have another competitor in the intense selection. There were still 10 odd people in the hall, but their eyes burned with a fierce fighting spirit. They did not fear challenges. The more opponents they had, the more excited they would be. Pei Shaoxian, what do you think? The Holy Fire Manor's young manor lord, Ling Yun, asked indifferently as he looked at the beast-taming abode's Pei Shaoxian. Pei Shaoxian played with the scarlet ring on his index finger gently. He said softly, he is very strong, but there is no need to be too shocked. If you can catch him off guard, you can defeat Jin Wuji in 10 moves. Ling Yun nodded and said, naturally, I understand this principle. However, it's a pity that it's a little difficult to seize the initiative against a cultivator whose cultivation is not lower than his. This is where this person is brilliant. Pei Shaoxian stood up. Before he left, he said indifferently, the 100 battles are all real. You can catch him off guard once or twice. However, if you want to fight continuously, your foundation is the most important. I will see you tomorrow. The outstanding talents in the hall discussed the earlier battle for a while before they left. Since the banquet was over, there was no need for them to remain here. Xia Xian led her junior sister over to congratulate Xiao Chen. She said, congratulations. It looks like I have another competitor for the ancient desolate land slot. Xiao Chen smiled gently and said, Miss Xia, you are exaggerating. In a battle between us, we would only have a 50-50 chance of winning. Humph. My first senior sister comprehended sword intent at the age of 16. Now, she is a superior grade martial king. She also cultivates a peak earth ranked cultivation technique. Her martial techniques are also peak earth ranked martial techniques. She is not inferior to anyone in the same generation. Don't overestimate yourself. Don't overestimate yourself, Xiao Rou, who was beside Xia Xian, said in dissatisfaction when she heard Xiao Chen comparing himself to Xia Xian. In her opinion, Xiao Chen was able to defeat Jin Wuji in 6 moves. Although he was very strong, it was mostly due to his trickery. If it were not for that kick catching Jin Wuji off guard and causing him to lose the initiative, then forcing him to retreat again and again, it would have been impossible for Xiao Chen to defeat Jin Wuji within 10 moves. However, Xiao Rou did not think that being able to catch an opponent of the same cultivation realm off guard and seize the initiative was a display of strength. When Xiao Chen looked at Xiao Rou, he did not get angry. He could tell that she was trying her best to protect his first senior sister. She was like a little girl worshipping her idol. When Xia Xian heard this, she glared at Xiao Rou. Then, she said apologetically, sorry, this little fellow always speaks without thinking. Don't mind her. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and did not say anything. I will take my leave first. See you tomorrow. Seeing that Xiao Rou still wanted to say something, Xia Xian quickly pulled her to the side and took her leave. Xiao Chen sheathed the lunar shadow saber and did not linger. He prepared to leave. The battle in the wrestling ring tomorrow would be the real start. This was just an appetizer. Brother Xiao, please wait a moment. Just as Xiao Chen reached the threshold of the hall, Jiang Zimo called out to Xiao Chen. Then, he walked over with Mu Xinya. Although Xiao Chen understood Jiang Zimo, this person had helped him time and time again. This made Xiao Chen want to make friends with him. This was especially so when Jiang Zimo risked offending Li Xiuzhu and spoke up to help him. Compared to those people who tried to curry favor with Li Xiuzhu, Jiang Zimo was even more valuable. Stopping, Xiao Chen turned around and performed a cupped fist salute. He said, many thanks to Brother Zimo for helping me earlier, helping me obtain this opportunity. Jiang Zimo smiled gently and said, it is just a small matter. I am not afraid of Li Xiuzhu. He would not dare to do anything to me. Jiang Zimo sounded very confident. It seemed like he had a strong power behind him, something that even Li Xiuzhu feared. Xiao Chen did not continue with the pleasantries. He directly said, why are you looking for me? If there is anything I can help you with, just ask. In that case, I will remember what you said. If there is nothing, I will look for you. Jiang Zimo smiled and pointed to the silver-haired girl beside him. He said, she is the one looking for you. I will take my leave first. After Jiang Zimo left, Xiaochen looked suspiciously at the silver-haired girl before him. Although she looked familiar, Xiaochen did not remember seeing this girl before. Speaking of which, do we know each other? Xiaochen asked probingly. Mu Xinya looked at Xiaochen and revealed a bitter smile on her exquisite face. She said, if I tell you, will you kill me again? Xiaochen was shocked. When he heard the other party's voice, he finally recalled who this silver-haired girl was. Back then, in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, this girl had disguised herself as a human girl, Mu Xinya, for the sake of rescuing the imprisoned Heavenly Wolf King. They had interacted with each other for more than a month. No wonder this girl's gaze never left me the moment I entered the hall. She must have found me familiar. When Xiaochen thought about the events of that day, it was still vivid in his mind. The pleading expressions of the miners appeared clearly in his mind. However, Xiaochen already had a different view of the events of that day. Those miners were sacrificed by the Heavenly Saber Pavilion on purpose. It was hard to tell who was in the right and who was in the wrong. Collecting his thoughts, Xiaochen shook his head and replied, no, I do not wish to mention the matters of the past. Everyone has their own beliefs. It is just that their point of view is different. When Mu Xinya heard this, she heaved a sigh of relief. She said, can we have a chat? Xiaochen nodded and the two of them flew out. Outside the hall, Jin Wuji's clothes were tattered. He lay on the ground in a sorry state. Occasionally, electricity would flicker on his body. The bones in Xiaochen's chest caved invisibly. That was a palm strike from Li Xiuzhu filled with rage. As a bona fide martial monarch, this palm strike caused more damage than Xiaochen. Furthermore, Xiaochen had injured Jin Wuji. Without half a year of recuperation and miraculous medicine, it would be difficult for Jin Wuji to recover to his peak state. To these geniuses, wasting half a year was an extremely cruel thing to do. It might result in a gap that they would never be able to cross. When the cultivators passing by saw this scene, they felt that the world was like a game of chess, the universe was unpredictable. 15 minutes ago, Jin Wuji was the envy of everyone. As long as he did not lose in 10 moves, he would be able to pass the first round easily. However, 15 minutes later, an inferior-grade martial king defeated him in 6 moves. If news of this spread, his reputation would be ruined. Furthermore, Li Xiuzhu made a move to injure Jin Wuji, disqualifying him from being a candidate. This was like adding snow to snow, it was a tragic sight. Everyone remembered this lesson. In the future, they could not underestimate any cultivator with a lower cultivation. They could not guarantee that it would be another Xiaochen. Jin Wuji lying on the ground was the best example of how miserable their fates were. Ding Fengqiu slowly walked over to Jin Wuji and sighed to himself. Jin Wuji was completely crippled. He had lost the qualifications to compete with the top geniuses forever. In this age of geniuses, where the age of geniuses had just sprouted, this was undoubtedly a tragedy. I told you long ago, it is important to know one's limits. If you are not strong enough, don't use the heavenly sword gate to show off. You are asking for it if you are crippled. Ding Fengqiu placed his palm on Jin Wuji's chest and circulated his essence. The electricity in Jin Wuji's body was immediately sucked into Ding Fengqiu's palm. Chapter 434. Ding Fengqiu raised his palm, and a ball of lightning attributed spiritual energy gathered on his palm. The unconscious Jin Wuji's expression immediately relaxed. Bang! Ding Fengqiu casually waved his hand and the ball of lightning landed on the ground. It blasted a huge pit and kicked up a cloud of dust. What a strong lightning-attributed energy. This person might be cultivating a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Otherwise, he would not have such surging energy as an inferior-grade martial king. Ding Fengqiu frowned slightly as he muttered to himself. Furthermore, this was only the remnant energy. If he used it at full power, it would be even stronger. It had to be said that Ding Fengqiu's eyes were very good. With just the remnant energy, he was able to roughly guess Xiao Chen's true strength. Ding Fengqiu, I told you long ago not to bring out trash. Now, you have embarrassed yourself. The beast-taming abode's Pei Xiaoxian laughed loudly as he walked over. You are seeking death. Ding Fengqiu's expression turned cold. He formed 2 fingers on his right hand into a sword and pointed at Pei Xiaoxian. Xiao. The sword at Ding Fengqiu's waist hummed and quickly came out of its scabbard. Under his control, it carried a surging sword intent as it flew at Pei Xiaoxian. Woo! Woo! The sword hummed in the air. Water-like ripples spread out from the sword. It seemed like space itself turned blurry. Pei Xiaoxuan's expression changed. He had not expected Ding Fengqiu to make a move. He quickly formed hand seals with both hands. A circular formation appeared in front of Pei Xiaoxian. An ape with skin as hard as steel blocked Pei Xiaoxuan's path. Bang! As soon as the ape appeared, a huge bloody hole was opened up in its chest by the long sword. The sword pierced through its body and it couldn't be any more dead. Hu Qi. Pei Xiaoxian had not expected Ding Fengqiu to break the steel ape, which had a high defense, in an instant. Pei Xiaoxian did his best to dodge. However, the sword still managed to leave a deep wound on his right arm. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Soon, his entire right arm was dyed red. It looked very scary. Pei Xiaoxian, on account of your first senior brother, I will not kill you immediately. In the future, you better watch your mouth. The people of the Heavenly Sword Gate are not for you to speak. Kacha. Ding Fengqiu waved his hand, and his sword returned to its scabbard. He picked up Jin Wuji's body and left without even looking at Pei Xiaoxian. As Pei Xiaoxian watched Ding Fengqiu leave, he revealed an extremely hateful gaze. The grudge between him and Ding Fengqiu had started long ago. During one of his fortuitous encounters, he had been severely injured by the other party while fighting for a natural treasure. The other party had even stolen all of his treasures, and he had always viewed it as a great humiliation. Otherwise, he would not have dealt a heavy blow to Jin Wuji in the previous 5-nation youth competition and eliminated him in a sorry state. After that, he retracted his gaze and stopped the sword wound on his arm. He squatted down and pointed the red ring on his right hand at the steel ape lying in a pool of blood on the ground. Chi-chi. With a flash of red light, the steel ape's corpse and blood were sucked into the ring. Kacha-kacha. A series of hair-raising sounds came from the ring. It was very strange. The full moon hung high in the sky, like a silver plate adorning the night sky. Xiao Chen and Mu Xinya sat on a roof in the city. Although they were chatting, Mu Xinya was the one speaking most of the time. Xiao Chen had a rough understanding of what happened after she left the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. After inheriting the Heavenly Wolf King's power, Mu Xinya's strength increased rapidly. Now, she was already a peak superior grade martial king. The most important thing was that she did not have any bottlenecks. As long as she absorbed the Heavenly Wolf King's power, her strength would continue to increase. Her potential was unlimited. When fighting with others, she could draw on the Heavenly Wolf King's power. Even if she faced a half-step martial monarch, she would still be able to hold her own. She would not be like Xiao Chen, who had no chance and could only find an opportunity to retreat. Because of her, the Heavenly Wolf race, which was in a precarious situation, obtained a large amount of resources from the Myriad Fiend Palace. The overall strength of the Heavenly Wolf race increased by the day. Yi Chen, did you know? That month in the underground world was actually the most ordinary period of my life. Mu Xinya raised her head and looked at the bright moon in the sky. The moonlight shone on her silver hair, adding a faint glow to it. It looked somewhat dreamy. Ha ha. However, I cannot stop. The burden of the clan rests on my shoulders. There are 20 spots in the ancient desolate tower. I must obtain one. Xiaoqin smiled faintly. In that case, I wish you success. I must obtain one of the 20 spots. Mu Xinya smiled. In that case, let's work hard together. When the time comes, we will work together in the ancient desolate tower. With our tacit understanding, we might be able to reach a height that no one has ever reached before. I'm leaving. Thank you for chatting with me for so long. I can finally let go of the burden in my heart. Mu Xinya waved her hand at Xiaoqin. Then, she jumped off the roof and landed far away. Xiaoqin stood up and looked at the distant Mu Xinya. He sighed softly. There are more than 1,000 peak geniuses. Just in this group, there are geniuses among geniuses like Ding Fengqiu, Jiang Zimo, and Mu Xinya. These 20 spots will not be easy to obtain. However, no matter what, he had to obtain these 20 spots. The ancient desolate tower had a total of 9 floors. Back then, the genius Thunder King had made it to the 7th floor before he rose up. In the past few years, although there were not many people who made it to the 5th floor, they had all obtained great benefits. Some of them had a great increase in their cultivation. Some had obtained ancient heaven-ranked martial techniques or heaven-ranked cultivation techniques. There were also those who had reached a bottleneck in comprehending martial techniques. They had a huge breakthrough in there, and their combat prowess had increased greatly after they came out. It would not be an exaggeration to say that without the ancient desolate tower, it would be very difficult for the cultivators of the 4 nations to enter the top 50 on the Tianwu ranking. The next day, just as dawn broke, the light of dawn shone on every corner of Wrestling City. More than 200 outstanding talents from all over the world were already waiting in the Great Hall of Old Li's residence. Xiaoqin stood in a corner of the crowd, waiting calmly for Li Xiuzhu to arrive. This was only the first round of selection. He believed that he had the strength to clear it. After a while, Li Xiuzhu walked out from the back of the Great Hall. Aside from his 3 assistants, there was an unfamiliar cultivator beside him. That person wore tight cultivator robes. His muscles were bulging, making him look very strong. He looked to be in his 40s and was actually a half-step martial monarch. There was a faint scar on the right side of this person's face, giving him a ferocious aura. His eyes were dim and lifeless, making him look very sinister. Li Xiuzhu found Xiaoqin in the crowd and smiled coldly. Then, he withdrew his gaze and said, "Let me introduce everyone. This is Wrestling City's city lord, Gao Yangyu. We will not be in charge of what happens next. 6 days from now, I will be in charge of counting the people who won 60 matches. I will bring those who meet the criteria to Desolate City and meet up with the people from the other 3 groups for the second round of selection. Those who do not meet the criteria will be sent home." After Li Xiuzhu spoke, he did not care about anything else. He led his 3 assistants and left, leaving the scene to Gao Yangyu. Gao Yangyu looked at the crowd calmly. With a flip of his hand, a stack of contracts appeared. Then, he silently distributed them to the crowd. Xiaoqin took a look at the contract. It was a life and death contract. The general content of the contract was that he was willing to participate in the A-rank wrestling matches. His life and death had nothing to do with Wrestling City. Let me state this first, Wrestling City does not have much of a relationship with the Heavenly Extermination Union. They have no control over me. In fact, I only received news about you people wanting to participate in the A-rank wrestling matches a week ago. I will not give you any special privileges. You will be the same as the other cultivators participating in the A-rank wrestling matches. Your life and death will be up to fate. If you want to participate, you will have to sign this contract first. After Gao Yangyu finished distributing the contracts, he spoke calmly. Li Xiuzhu had already told everyone about this. The outstanding talents present all had calm expressions. They did not hesitate to sign the contracts. Perhaps there might really be deaths in the A-rank wrestling matches. However, everyone here was an outstanding talent, they were all very strong. Who would think that they would be the ones dying? After signing the life and death contract, Xiaochen lined up at the back of the crowd. He was the last to hand the contract to Gao Yangyu. Gao Yangyu looked at the name on the life and death contract. He could not help but glance at Xiaochen. An undetectable killing intent flashed in his eyes. Xiaochen could clearly feel this killing intent. However, his expression did not change as he slowly moved to the back. Xiaochen had no grudges with Gao Yangyu. Logically speaking, Gao Yangyu could not possibly have any killing intent towards him. The only possibility was that Li Xiuzhu had left some instructions for him. It looks like this old thing really wants to fight with me, Xiaochen thought to himself coldly. I will endure this for now and keep an eye out. After Gao Yangyu put away the contract, he appeared very satisfied. He smiled faintly and said, "Very good. No one is absent. I wish you all good luck in advance." Gao Yangyu twisted the ring on his right hand and space fluctuated intensely. Suddenly, a door of light appeared in the hall. "Let's go." Gao Yangyu took the lead and stepped into the door of light. None of them were ordinary cultivators. They knew that this was a rarely seen teleportation door. There was nothing to be surprised about, so they all followed suit. As usual, Xiaochen was the last to enter. When he stepped into the door of light, he felt a mysterious energy pull his body infinitely. All the sensations disappeared. It felt like only an instant, but it also felt like an eternity. Xiaochen finally regained control of his movements. Roar! 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 Just as Xiaochen found his footing, he heard earth-shattering shouts. The sounds did not stop for a long time. Xiaochen looked up and discovered that he and the others were in a majestic wrestling ring. The circular wrestling ring was at least 10,000 square meters in size. It was surrounded by a ring of spectator stands. The 10,000 seats were all occupied. It was very lively. Gao Yangyu gathered everyone together and pointed in a direction. He said, "Later, 1,000 demonic beasts will charge out from the cages over there. There will be a total of 200 iron medallions in the bodies of the 1,000 demonic beasts. You have to kill the demonic beasts and obtain the iron medallions before you can truly qualify to fight in the rank A wrestling ring." Chapter 435. Everyone looked in the direction of Gao Yangyu's finger. They saw countless scarlet eyes flashing in a pitch-black space behind a metal railing. A strong aura came from inside, accompanied by the roars of beasts, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Damn it! They are all rank 7 demonic beasts. When someone sensed the rank of the demonic beasts inside, his expression changed drastically. He was clearly horrified. Gao Yangyu smiled faintly and said, "That's right. They are all rank 7 demonic beasts. Furthermore, they are extremely hungry." One rank 7 demonic beast was not scary. Everyone here could deal with it easily. However, 1,000 rank 7 demonic beasts, even if they split the rewards evenly, everyone would have to fight 4 rank 7 demonic beasts alone. Furthermore, they would have to split their attention to snatch the iron medallion. That would be extraordinarily dangerous. Xia Xian's expression turned grave. She said softly to Xiaoro, "Don't get separated later. Follow me closely." Although Xiaoro was strong, she did not have much experience. The 1,000 Sword Pavilion's plan was to let her undergo a experiential training and try her luck. Perhaps, she could even enter the ancient desolate tower. However, the 1,000 Sword Pavilion did not expect that they would meet with such danger at the start of the selection. The other people in the crowd also looked for companions. Under such circumstances, it was too dangerous to be alone. Jiang Zimo and Mu Xinya also sent invitations to Xiaochen. Xiaochen shook his head and rejected them. He knew that they were helping him out of goodwill. However, he had the advantage of speed and was not afraid of such a situation. There was no need to owe them a favor. Gao Yangyu was very satisfied with the atmosphere. After he stopped the discussion, he said, after you obtain the iron medallion, you can be challenged by anyone here. As long as you are not a half-step martial monarch, you can challenge them. All you need to do is defeat these challengers and obtain 60 victories. Open the gates. Without giving the crowd any time to react, Gao Yangyu jumped out of the dojo and waved his hand. The iron railing holding the 1000-rank 7 demonic beasts immediately opened. Boom! 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 Intense footsteps resounded as all the demonic beasts rushed out. Blood dripped from their mouths as they charged at the crowd with bloodshot eyes. Thousands of demonic beasts crawled on the ground and flew in the sky. There were wind attributed, fire attributed, ice attributed, all sorts of demonic beasts. All of a sudden, they all rushed over together. Black chi soared into the sky, blotting out the sun. Their imposing manner was incomparably terrifying. The crowd did not hesitate in the slightest as they rapidly retreated. At this time, no one dared to test the sharpness of these demonic beasts. When a demon beast that was starving to the extreme suddenly smelled the scent of humans, it became several times more ferocious than usual. No one would be so stupid as to wantonly attack it now. Retreat. Everyone used their own movement techniques to retreat and quickly spread out. Boom boom boom. However, there were simply too many demonic beasts. The entire wrestling ring could only accommodate this group of demonic beasts. Soon, there were cultivators fighting the demonic beasts. 4 demonic beasts surrounded Xiao Chen. One of them was a scarlet steel snake that was as thick as a bucket and had steel-like spiritual scales. It was tens of meters long. 2 flame wolves covered in black chi walked on their hind legs, and an extremely fierce lightning bull stood on all fours. Hu Chi. The incredibly fast scarlet steel snake took the initiative to attack. It opened its huge mouth and shot towards Xiao Chen, wanting to swallow Xiao Chen whole. Xiao. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and activated the blood flame shoes. His speed reached Mach 3.5, drawing a purple arc in the air. Xiao Chen's figure flickered and landed on the scarlet steel snake's head. Then, he stomped on it. Dang! Dang! A huge force landed on the scarlet steel snake's head, giving off an intense metallic sound. Xiao Chen stomped the scarlet steel snake's upper body into the ground. Rumble. A deep pit appeared in the ground. Cracks extended in all directions. Xiao Chen stood in the air. His ankle felt somewhat numb. However, he did not feel that the scarlet steel snake had suffered any fatal injuries. The rank 7 demonic beast scarlet steel snake was famous for its defense. Its scales were as hard as superior-grade frost iron. Swords and spears could not break them, making it very difficult to deal with. Chi. A purple bolt of lightning shot over quickly. It was the lightning bull attacking as well. 2 flame wolves covered in black flames followed the bolt of lightning and charged over. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and pulled back his palm. The purple bolt of lightning turned into a whirlpool and quickly gathered in his palm, turning into a clump of fierce purple flames. Without the protection of a state, Xiao Chen could absorb as much lightning-attributed energy as he wanted. Xiao Chen took a step forward and did not advance. Instead, he retreated and punched at the 2 flame wolves. A purple flame spread out from his fist, encasing the 2 flame wolves. Demonic beasts were very intelligent. The 2 flame wolves originally intended to take advantage of the time Xiao Chen blocked the lightning to charge up and attack. Who knew, Xiao Chen did not fear the lightning at all. With a flip of his palm, he withdrew the lightning. After the 2 demonic beasts charged up and attacked, they would remain in that state forever. Boom! The purple flames clashed with the black flames around the flame wolves, giving off intense heat. Then, Xiao Chen's punch knocked the purple flames back to the ground. After tumbling a few times, the flame wolves climbed back to their feet in a sorry state. Their fur was scorched, giving off black smoke. Roar! Roar! When the lightning ox saw that the lightning it was so proud of could not harm Xiao Chen, it became anxious and pressed its huge body towards Xiao Chen. The physiques of demonic beasts were generally stronger than those of human cultivators. When clashing head-on with their physical bodies, humans would usually be the ones at a disadvantage. Many demonic beasts like to use this move. If used well, they could even cause internal injuries to cultivators. Unfortunately, the lightning ox met with Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen clenched his fists and the image of a tiger and a dragon circled around his arms. The roars of the tiger and dragon resounded continuously. Crouching tiger, hidden dragon. Xiao Chen shouted and crossed his arms, taking on the lightning ox's frenzied charge. Bang! There was a loud sound of collision. Xiao Chen did not move at all. No matter how fast the lightning ox moved, it rebounded with a huge force. Dragon hisses, tiger roars. With the power of the crouching tiger, hidden dragon, Xiao Chen moved and arrived beside the lightning ox. Then, he punched the lightning ox, which had just gotten up. Roar! 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 When Xiao Chen punched, boundless tiger roars and dragon roars resounded endlessly. The sounds were ear-splitting, and intense explosions came from the lightning ox's body. Hoo-chee! Hoo-chee! The lightning ox retaliated with all its might. Electricity lit up all over its body, giving off a purple light. Boundless electricity danced around in the surroundings. As the electricity surged, Xiao Chen's hair and clothes fluttered continuously. There were even faint traces of electricity moving about, giving off a zhi-zhi sound. Xiao Chen did not show any fear. He punched the lightning ox's body with his right fist. Following the roars of the tiger and dragon, he punched the lightning ox continuously. The purple thunder divine incantation circulated rapidly in Xiao Chen's body. His left hand continuously absorbed the electricity, forming a spinning whirlpool of electricity. After a while, the internal organs of the lightning ox were completely shattered by Xiao Chen's punch. The electricity finally dissipated. The scarlet metal snake and the flame wolves took advantage of this opportunity to pounce over. The three demonic beasts executed their best moves. The scarlet metal snake's long tail swept down with a heavy force. The two flame wolves had black flames burning on their claws, leaving long black flaming tails in the air. Xiao Chen turned around and retreated. As he looked at the fierce purple flame on his palm, a strange thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Could I use this purple flame to execute the life bestowal spell? In theory, the life bestowal spell could make use of anything. When it reached great perfection, it could even make use of the air. Since he thought of it, there was no problem trying it out. Xiao Chen used his spiritual sense to split off a strand of purple flame and quickly made it into a soaring lightning fire goshawk. Pu-chi! Xiao Chen's right hand formed hand seals as the mental energy in his sea of consciousness drained continuously. The essence liquid in the chi whirlpool also diminished at a visible rate. Using energy to execute the life bestowal spell actually drained twice as much. It could also be understood as merging essence and mental energy together. Xiao Chen shouted and executed the life bestowal spell. The lightning fire goshawk immediately came to life. When it spread its wings, it was 10 meters wide. The goshawk crashed into the snake tail descending from the sky. There was a ka-cie sound, and the scales, which were as hard as frost iron, shattered. The entire snake tail broke from the impact. It really works. It is actually so strong, Xiao Chen said with a smile, revealing a joyful expression. When Gao Yangyu, who was in the spectator stands, saw this scene, his expression changed slightly. This move seems to have merged essence and mental energy. How did this brat do it? How could the mental energy of a martial king not be able to withstand the explosive essence? This was a technique that only martial monarchs could grasp. Even a half-step martial monarch like Gao Yangyu could only barely grasp it. The lightning ox was already dead, and the scarlet metal snake was severely injured. Xiao Chen only had to face two flame wolves. Victory was basically in the bag. As long as Xiao Chen's luck was not too bad, an iron medallion should appear within the 4 demonic beasts. However, the one with the most dazzling performance was not Xiao Chen but someone else. The many cultivators in the spectator stands all focused on the battle in the wrestling ring. They wanted to see who was worth betting on. Chapter 436. Wrestling City had been in operation for over 100 years. It had already formed a very commercialized chain of events. Not only could the challengers obtain generous prizes, but it was also very profitable. Not only could the challengers obtain bountiful prizes, but the ordinary spectators could also participate in the various competitions organized by Wrestling City. Wrestling City was only 5 kilometers away from the island's main city, Longyang City. Every day, tens of thousands of cultivators would come to watch the fights. The total flow of people was more than 1 million. Almost everyone would go down the mountain to place a few bets. Even if each person only bet a few hundred medial-grade spirit stones, the bets would reach hundreds of millions of medial-grade spirit stones. That was a very large sum. Not only could they earn some extra income, but they could also watch some strong combat techniques in the wrestling rings. Wrestling City was very attractive to cultivators. Look, Ding Fengqiu already obtained an iron medallion and left. The Heavenly Gate defensive sword is indeed extraordinary. Suddenly, someone in the spectator's stands exclaimed. Not bad, he is strong enough. He managed to pierce through a vital point with one strike. He is indeed strong. I will place my bets on him after today's competition ends. The beast taming abodes Pei Shaoxian obtained an iron medallion as well. What a fellow! He controlled 7 or 8 rank 7 spirit beasts by himself. He completely crushed them. Jiang Zimo and Mu Xinya obtained iron medallions as well. It looks like the 3 experts of the Myriad Fiend Palace's younger generation are not undeserved. The Holy Fire Manor's young Manor Lord obtained an iron medallion as well. Leng Yun has been famous in the southern islands for a long time. It is not strange that he obtained an iron medallion so early. Some of the young experts who had been famous for a long time obtained an iron medallion and leaped out of Wrestling City. The moment these people entered the arena, they displayed a strong aura. After killing a few demonic beasts, no more demonic beasts dared to attack them. They went to look for weaker opponents. Their auras grew stronger as they fought. It was a tragedy for those who were weaker. The number of demonic beasts surrounding them increased. The originally difficult situation became even more difficult to deal with. Several people did not even have time to give up before the demonic beasts tore them to shreds and devoured them. Xiao Chen fought 4 demonic beasts alone. He did not even draw the lunar shadow saber. With his strong aura, no demonic beast dared to find trouble with him and take the initiative to attack him. Xiao Chen shifted his target to the other cultivators who were still struggling bitterly. The 2 flame wolves finally fell under Xiao Chen's iron fists. Xiao Chen broke open the corpses of the demonic beasts and discovered that his luck was not ordinary. 4 demonic beasts had actually allowed him to obtain 2 iron plates. However, no matter how many iron medallions there were, 1 was enough. As Xiao Chen prepared to leave, he discovered that Xia Xiyan and her junior sister were still blocking the attacks of 7 or 8 demonic beasts. Xia Xiyan already held an iron medallion in her hand. Unfortunately, her junior sister had too little combat experience. She was already flustered when dealing with 2 demonic beasts. When 4 or 5 demonic beasts attacked together, it was even more dangerous. He had no choice but to think of ways to help her deal with them. With Xiao Rou dragging them down, the number of beasts surrounding them increased. Initially, there were 4 beasts, but now, there were 8 of them. If this dragged on and the number of demonic beasts increased, even Xia Xiyan would find it hard to escape. Xiao Chen hesitated for a while before deciding to help. No matter what, when he first arrived at Heavenly Spring Island, Xia Xiyan had given him a good impression. Furthermore, this was not something that would require much effort. If he could help, he would. There was no harm in making more friends in the future. Bang! Xiao Chen pushed off the ground heavily and leaped into the air. With the help of the blood flame shoes, his figure moved at lightning speed. With a whip kick, he sent a demonic beast surrounding Xia Xian flying. Half of the demonic beast's head caved in. When it fell to the ground, it could not be more dead. This shocked Xia Xian and Xiao Rou. Seeing Xiao Chen help, Xia Xian could not help but rejoice. She said, "Many thanks, Brother Xiao, for helping." Xiao Chen nodded gently and did not say anything more. He tossed an iron plate to Xia Xian and said, "Bring your junior sister away. I'll hold off these demonic beasts first." When Xia Xian heard this, she rejected, "No way. There are still 7 demonic beasts. How can you hold them off by yourself? Even if you can, you will have to expose some of your trump cards." "That's fine. I have the advantage of speed. There is no need to be afraid. You go first." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and sent out a few sharp fist winds, attracting the attention of the 7 demonic beasts. The pale Xiao Rou heaved a sigh of relief. When she saw Xiao Chen attracting the attention of the demonic beasts alone, she felt somewhat embarrassed. She had not expected that Xiao Chen, whom she had looked down on, had already obtained 2 iron plates. He even gave one to her. Now, he even helped her lure all the demonic beasts away. Seeing Xiao Chen lead the demonic beasts far away, Xia Xian said to Xiao Rou, "The other demonic beasts are about to surround us. Take the iron plate and leave first. I will help him kill the demonic beasts. No matter what, I cannot owe him too much." Xiao Rou was not insensible. She knew that she would not be of much help. So, she quickly took the iron plate and flew away. The 7 demonic beasts launched all sorts of attacks at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen used his advantage in speed to dodge, dodging most of the attacks. As for the few attacks that were too concentrated, Xiao Chen simply blocked them. The larger the attack range, the weaker it would be. There was no problem blocking them. Ka-xie. Just as Xiao Chen was about to break through, a sharp sword light flashed. Blood spurted out, and a flame wolf's head flew into the air. However, Xia Xian turned back and landed beside Xiao Chen. Xia Xian did not say anything. Her sword light danced, and she danced around like a butterfly. She moved about the demonic beasts as she pleased, appearing graceful and natural. However, her sword chi was very dense and imposing. Furthermore, it was complemented by sword intent. Its might was startling, unlike her movement technique. When Xia Xian swung her sword, no matter how strong the demonic beasts were, they would be significantly injured. The weaker ones would have their limbs chopped off. This was Xia Xian's true strength. Without Xiao Rou holding her back, the first batch of people to obtain the iron plate would definitely have Xia Xian's name on it. Xiao Chen did not intend to leave immediately. He clenched his fists and relied on his strength and the strong defense of his physical body to fight the demonic beasts. With the 2 of them working together, the 7 demonic beasts slowly fell. The 2 of them took some time to extract their demonic cores. In the end, they discovered that the 7 demonic beasts did not even have an iron plate. Xia Xian felt somewhat fortunate as she said, "Fortunately, you helped me deliver an iron plate. Otherwise, after so much effort, we would not even have obtained an iron plate." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "Sometimes, luck is just like that. It is hard to say. Let's go." Xiao. Just at this moment, a man landed beside the 2 of them in a hurry. He smiled at them and said, "Help me block them for a while. I'll leave first." The expressions of the 2 of them changed. They saw 10-odd demonic beasts chasing after them aggressively. This fellow had actually used Xiao Chen and Xia Xian as a shield. The lines on the blood flame shoes suddenly lit up. Xiao Chen's speed increased to Mach 4. With a "xiao" sound, he arrived in front of that person. Before that person's astonished gaze, Xiao Chen kicked out and said expressionlessly, Scram! Xiao Chen's speed was too fast. That person did not even have a chance to react. The kick struck his chest and sent him flying back into the encirclement of the demonic beasts. Xia Xian took advantage of this opportunity and dashed forward. The two of them flew out of the wrestling ring one after the other and arrived at the spectator stand specially prepared for the participants. In the spectator stands, there were already 100 people who had obtained an iron medallion. They sized up Xiao Chen for a while before returning their attention to the wrestling ring. In the wrestling ring, 60 or 70 people were bitterly holding on. Forced by the situation, they had to work together to fight against the remaining 300-odd demonic beasts. Actually, as long as these people jumped out of the wrestling ring, even if they did not have an iron medallion, they would not receive any punishment. At most, they would automatically forfeit. Dozens of corpses littered the wrestling ring. Some demonic beasts cruelly devoured these corpses as tens of thousands of people watched. Dying without a complete corpse, reduced to food, this was the most tragic fall of geniuses. When Xiao Chen saw this, a ripple appeared in his calm heart. In this budding age of geniuses, geniuses were like fish in the river, emerging in an endless stream. To those talented cultivators, this was the best age. Only in this age could geniuses find a stage that belonged to them. They could shine brightly and leave their names in history. Just like the Tianwu emperor who founded the Tianwu dynasty. Just like the Thunder King from thousands of years ago. Even after tens of thousands of years, they were still remembered by history. This was also the worst age. Normally, the people here would be the ones who led the tide of the age. However, now, even the geniuses that appeared once in 100 years were no different from the crowd. If you did not work hard, you would be eliminated by the times, losing the opportunity to shine on this stage. The owners of the corpses in the wrestling ring had all thought of giving up when they were alive. However, once they gave up on this opportunity, they would be left behind. In this age, they could only be a spectator. To these proud and aloof geniuses, who would be willing to be a nameless spectator? Xiao Chen clenched his right fist tightly and muttered to himself, "The age of geniuses is here. Since I have come to this world, I cannot be a spectator." 300 rank 7 demonic beasts surrounded 67 cultivators. The battle could no longer be described as intense, it was extremely miserable. Another 10 cultivators obtained an iron medallion and broke through the encirclement of the demonic beasts, returning to the crowd. What surprised Xiao Chen was that the cultivator who wanted to use him and Xia Xian as a stepping stone was actually one of these 10 people. After that cultivator arrived, he looked at Xiao Chen with a sullen gaze before slowly walking into the crowd. Xia Xian said, "Don't underestimate him. He is the second disciple of the great Xia nation's Lamenting Valley's Valley Master. His lamenting palm is very powerful." He probably did not want to reveal his trump card, so he delayed obtaining an iron medallion. Xiao Chen nodded in agreement. In reality, he had hidden his strength as well. If he drew his saber, he was confident that he would be one of the top 10 people to obtain an iron medallion. After a while, no one else obtained an iron medallion. Instead, many of the cultivators who persisted died. Gao Yangyu shook his head and said to the people beside him. After a while, 10 half-step martial monarchs landed in the wrestling ring. Their strong auras merged together and pressed down on the rank 7 demonic beasts. Hu Qi. The previously insufferably arrogant rank 7 demonic beasts felt fear before this strong aura. They all retreated. Chapter 437. Dong! 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 The 10 of them did not make a move. They only slowly walked forward and chased the demonic beasts back into the prison. The remaining people knew that they no longer stood a chance. Their expressions were very dispirited. They all left the wrestling ring through another exit with ashen faces. This was no longer a stage that belonged to them. Gao Yangyu withdrew his gaze and looked at the crowd. He smiled and said, "This really exceeded my expectations. There are actually more than 100 people who qualified. The Rank A wrestling ring has never seen such a grand scene before. The wrestling ring will officially begin in 2 hours. According to the rules, you will all receive rewards based on the number of victories. Someone will inform you about this later. Now, go and register your medal medallion numbers. A manservant of the wrestling ring led the crowd to a basement and started to register. At the same time, there was someone who gave everyone a rough explanation of the wrestling ring's reward system. For every victory, they would receive 300 inferior grade spirit stones. It did not seem like much, but if they could win continuously, the reward would be doubled. After 2 consecutive victories, the reward would be 600 inferior grade spirit stones for the second match, 900 for the third match, 1,200 for the fourth match, and 1,500 for the fifth match. If a person could win continuously, winning 100 matches in a row, the reward would be astronomical. Just thinking about it was horrifying. No wonder the wrestling ring could make so many cultivators go crazy. Under the stimulation of the huge rewards, there would be some intense battles. Originally, the people who did not pay much attention to the rewards became excited when they heard about the rules of consecutive victories. This was not a small sum. No matter which sect or power it was, they would not be able to give out medial-grade spirit stones without limit. However, Xiaochen felt that it was not that simple. If there really was a cultivator who could win so many matches in a row, the wrestling ring would suffer a huge loss. Indeed, that person continued, haha. Don't think that consecutive victories are that simple. The current record is 60 consecutive victories. Furthermore, no one has been able to achieve that in the past 100 years. The registration did not take long. There were still 2 hours before the official wrestling ring started. Everyone closed their eyes and recuperated, recovering to their peak condition. In a tall tower in the dueling ring, Gao Yangyu held the registration information of the crowd and distributed it to the surrounding old men. Find a few special people and advertise them. Just say that these people have a chance of breaking the 60-win streak. I want the bets on these people to reach 50 million medial-grade spirit stones within 3 days. The few old men said awkwardly, City Lord Gao, will people believe this kind of propaganda? Gao Yangyu laughed loudly, can I trouble you to read through the information first? These are all the peak geniuses of the various nations. This wrestling ring is the first round of selection for the ancient desolate tower. If you spread this news, I estimate that the ticket sales will double. After saying that, Gao Yangyu revealed a somewhat depressed expression. He slapped his forehead and sighed softly, unfortunately, I only received the notice a week ago. Furthermore, the rules state that I cannot leak this information in advance. Otherwise, the spirit stones we earned this time would be enough for us to rest for 10 years. After that, an old man came over excitedly with a stack of information. He smiled and said, City Lord, what do you think of this person? He is the white-robed bladesman Xiaochen. He once defeated the geniuses of the noble clans in the great Qin nation. He even defeated the outer disciples of the Holy Lands. Previously, he snatched away a peak superior grade demon core in front of 10-odd half-step martial monarchs in the demon battlefield. They are all very good names. With a little packaging, they will be the biggest names. Gao Yangyu received the information and tossed it on the table without even looking at it. He said coldly, don't bother with this brat. No one is allowed to advertise him. Don't ask for the reason. The few old men exchanged glances, they did not understand what Gao Yangyu meant. 2 hours later, everyone had basically recovered. The earlier match was like a warm-up. After stretching their muscles, their bodies had returned to their peak condition. Gao Yangyu did not appear again. Instead, an older, gray-robed old man led everyone out of the basement and back to the spectator stands. The gray-robed old man stood in front and said, there are only 10 matches on the first day. Just consider it a warm-up. In the next 5 days, there will be 18 matches every day. Later, all of you will go up one by one according to your assigned numbers. Xiaochen looked at his own medal medallion. There were the words, 15, carved on it. It was an average ranking. Dong! 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 The moment the group walked out of the wrestling ring's passageway, they heard the sound of drums that stirred their hearts. The drums sounded like thunder, beating rhythmically. It was unknown what these drums were made of, but the sound was resonant and grand. It made everyone's blood surge and their fighting spirit soar. They felt like their blood was on fire. Xiaoqin looked up and discovered that the drums were coming from the 4 tall towers around the wrestling ring. With the sound of these drums, the atmosphere of the crowd had already been stirred up. The crowd was very excited and surging endlessly. This is the peak-grade heavenly tone war drum. It is said that it is made from the skin and tendons of the 1,000-year-old flood dragon, a rank 10 spirit beast. With the sound of the drum, it can stimulate one's fighting spirit and erupt out with even greater combat prowess than usual. The outstanding talents who knew their stuff all exclaimed in astonishment. A 1,000-year-old flood dragon was as strong as a peak martial sage. Furthermore, it was omnipotent. It was very hard to find one. The gray-robed old man smiled faintly and said, "This is not the heavenly tone war drum. It is the superior grade golden cauldron war drum. Its function is the same as the heavenly tone valleys, but its effects are much weaker. You are not qualified to bring out the heavenly tone war drum. Only rank S wrestling rings would bring out the heavenly tone war drum." The drumming became even more intense, but the old man did not say anything more. "Who is number 1? Quickly come forward." A young cultivator in the crowd took a deep breath and leaped out of the spectator stands. The drumming instantly stopped. The young cultivator performed a cupped fist salute to the spectator stands and said in a loud voice, "Great Chu Nation's purple brilliant sex Yunping seeks your guidance." The gazes of the tens of thousands of cultivators in the spectator stands immediately focused on Yunping. Countless senses were directed at him. Some people withdrew their senses and shook their heads in disdain. Some people were interested, and some were deciding whether to go down and fight. Xiao. Not long after, a bald cultivator with a sword on his back flew over from the spectator stands in the south. When he landed, he did not make a sound. Clearly, this person's control over his strength had already reached a certain level. Xiaoqin checked this bald cultivator's cultivation. He was a superior grade martial king. However, his aura was extremely vast. This person probably cultivated a superior grade earth-ranked cultivation technique. He should be quite strong. After the two of them performed cupped fist salutes, they immediately started fighting. At this moment, the drums suddenly started to sound. Then, according to the rhythm of the battle, the drums fluctuated. They grasped the audience's heartstrings tightly, causing the tens of thousands of spectators to be affected by the drumming. They formed a formless connection with the battle. It was like they were in the battle. The battle continued for 15 minutes. Yunping easily defeated the bald cultivator. The battle was very ordinary, there was nothing special about it. After the bald cultivator landed, he walked over to Xiaoqin dispiritedly. Then, he handed the gray-robed old man 150 medial-grade spirit stones. The gray-robed old man explained, "The challenger has to hand over half of the spirit stone reward of the challenged. If he wins, he will obtain 300 medial-grade spirit stones." The matches continued. Yunping's aura flourished. He won 9 matches in a row. His reward had already doubled to 2,700 medial-grade spirit stones. This was a significant sum. As long as Yunping won one more match, he would be able to end today's matches perfectly. At the same time, he would be able to obtain 3,000 medial-grade spirit stones. The moment the 9th match ended, someone eagerly jumped into the wrestling ring. This person did not control his strength at all. When this person landed, the ground gave off a loud, peng-peng sound, kicking up a large cloud of dust. It was very ostentatious. The person who arrived had a sword at his waist. He had a sinister look on his face. He smiled gently and said, "Yunping, right?" I will take your 3,000 medial grade spirit stones. Remember my name, Xiao Yang. Yun Ping mocked, do you think that is possible? Dong! The war drums rang out and the two immediately clashed. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed in the air. Xia Xian said softly, this Yun Ping's 9 consecutive victories will probably come to an end. The battle had just started. How could Xia Xian come to such a conclusion so quickly? Xiaochen asked suspiciously, why do you say that? Xia Xian smiled gently and explained, I have been to Wrestling City a few times. This Xiao Yang is quite famous here. He likes to make a move when his opponent has just obtained 9 consecutive victories. He rarely fails. Hence, he is nicknamed the 10-Victory Terminator. 10-Victory Terminator. Unexpectedly, there is such a nickname. Xiaochen laughed hoarsely, it looks like without some strength, it would be difficult to obtain such a nickname. Xia Xian nodded and said, he has been a superior grade martial king for a long time already. His attainments in sword techniques are no weaker than a regular genius. The most important thing is that the state he comprehended is very strange. It is similar to the state of Lamenting Valley, it can affect one's emotions. This was the first time Xiaochen heard of a state that could affect one's emotions. He could not help but feel interested as he watched the battlefield carefully. As the two spoke, they had already exchanged 10 moves. Yun Ping could tell that his opponent was strong. He also knew that he had exhausted a lot of essence after fighting 9 consecutive battles. It was not good to drag this out. Hence, Yun Ping used every move he made. He wanted to end the battle quickly. However, Xiao Yang appeared very relaxed. He moved around like a monkey, choosing not to clash head-on with Yun Ping. He continuously exhausted Yun Ping's energy and patience. Yun Ping tried to catch his opponent a few times to force him into a head-on battle. However, Xiao Yang nimbly escaped. Xiaochen muttered to himself as he looked at the other party's movement technique and analyzed it in his mind. What an exquisite movement technique. It seems like he can sense the direction of his opponent's attacks from any part of his body. However, it is useless against my blue dragon cloud soaring art. In the face of absolute speed, he cannot use tricks to break through force. Chapter 438. It's time to end this. Lose. Xiao Yang, who had been dodging for a long time, suddenly stopped. His eyes turned incredibly sharp as he thrust his sword forward. The sword whistled, creating a long trail of fiery red light in the air. That was an incredibly dense fire-attributed essence. However, Yun Ping did not panic. Instead, he laughed, you are seeking your own death. I have been waiting for you for a long time. You should be the one to lose. Cha! Cha! Just as Yun Ping was about to use his powerful killing move, he suddenly felt fear in his heart. When he saw his opponent's eyes, he felt even more fear. There was no reason for this fear. It lingered on, throwing Yun Ping's mental state into chaos. Originally, he only needed 3 breaths of time to execute his killing move. However, he did not manage to do so for a long time. Compared to the chaotic Yun Ping, Xiao Yang's aura was even more condensed. Xiao Yang knocked away Yun Ping's weapon with his sword. Then, his sword, which contained surging fire-attributed essence, exploded on Yun Ping's chest. Bang! A bloody hole appeared in Yun Ping's chest as he fell to the ground. Blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth, and a cold sword rested on his neck. Yun Ping was astonished, he could not accept such a result. However, Xiao Yang laughed loudly and said, I said before, your victory ends here. Come again tomorrow. Pray that you do not meet me then. Xiao Yang sheathed his sword and walked over to the gray-robed old man. He took away the 3,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Before he left, he casually glanced at Xiaochen. When Xiaochen felt that gaze, he felt it was strange. It was because that gaze was not friendly. Xia Xian said suspiciously, "This fellow seems to be targeting you. Did you offend him in some way?" Xiao Chen said indifferently, "I'm not sure. However, I am not afraid. I have already figured out what is going on with his state. Aside from that strange state, this fellow was actually not much stronger than Yunping." However, Yunping appeared very anxious because of the last battle today. He had wanted to end the fight in one move. In the end, he was led by the nose by his opponent. In the end, when Yunping became completely restless, the other party suddenly attacked and hit him with one strike. Yunping's defeat was not undeserved. Dong dong dong. The war drums continued to beat. The battles for numbers 1 to 14 were in full swing. In the following battles, there were a few exciting ones. Everyone who came out won at least half of their matches, but none of them managed to win 10 matches in a row. If they didn't lose a match halfway through, then they would lose the crucial final match due to their bad mentality and be ended by their opponents. Who's number 15? Hurry up. Finally, it was Xiao Chen's turn. Xiao Chen gently touched the ground with his toes and landed steadily on the drill ground. "I am the great Qin nation's Xiao Chen. Everyone, please enlighten me." Xiao Chen cupped his hands and said to everyone, "Xiao." As soon as he finished speaking, a figure quickly landed in the wrestling ring. When he landed, the ground trembled violently. It was extremely ostentatious. It was Xiao Yang, who had defeated Yunping and was known as the 10 Winds Terminator. Xiao Yang sized up Xiao Chen. When he saw that Xiao Chen did not carry a weapon, only a pair of black gloves, he curled his lips and said, "A fist master? That's good too. I have not fought with a fist master in a long time. I, Xiao Yang, will fight you." Strange, why is Xiao Yang going down? This fellow rarely appears during the first match of others. I have not seen Xiao Yang in a few years. Xiao Yang appearing in the first match is really rare. Indeed, when did his character change? 300 medial grade spirit stones should not interest him. This brat might have offended Xiao Yang before. This brat is in for a treat. Losing in the first match will be a huge blow to his morale. The cultivators in the spectator stands frequently came to Wrestling City. They were very familiar with Xiao Yang. When they saw him going down in the first match, they were confused. In a room at the top of a tall tower behind the wrestling ring, Gao Yangyu looked expressionlessly at the figures of Xiao Chen and Xiao Yang. He muttered, "Brat, don't blame me for being ruthless. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for slapping Li Xiuzhu in the face. That old fellow is famous for being petty." An old man at the side could not help but say, "City Lord Gao, are you really going to let this brat lose every match? Do you want him to lose 100 matches? Gao Yangyu shrugged his shoulders and said, "Li Xiuzhu has already spoken. What do you expect me to do? Don't forget, he is in charge of the Heavenly Extermination Union's taxes. There is nothing wrong with offending someone. This brat deserves to be unlucky. Just follow my instructions." The old man nodded slightly. However, he shook his head and smiled bitterly to himself. Losing 100 matches, this brat is truly unprecedented. With such a great humiliation, he will probably be crippled for life. This Li Xiuzhu is too ruthless. He actually thought of such a vicious plan. As Xiao Chen looked at the evil expression on Xiao Yang's face, he did not feel any waves in his heart. Now that Xiao Yang was in this wrestling ring, no matter who he was or why he came here, Xiao Chen only cared about one thing. That was an enemy. There was no need to think about anything else. All he had to do was knock Xiao Yang off the wrestling ring. "I'm sorry. Given my status, it is indeed unfair for me to make a move against you. However, I was entrusted to do so. Don't blame me." Right after Xiao Yang spoke, he looked sharply at Xiao Chen's reaction. He wanted to see through this calm youth. However, Xiao Yang was disappointed. From the start to the end, Xiao Chen's mental state did not fluctuate at all. His expression was incredibly calm, as if he did not care about his opponent at all. Xiao Qin said indifferently, "There is no need for you to apologize. You are not qualified to apologize either." Ha ha. Interesting. The corners of Xiao Yang's lips curled up. He smiled and said, "I want to see what capabilities you have to say such big words." Dong. 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 The war drums, which had been silent for a long time, finally started beating passionately once again. It made everyone's blood surge and their spirits surge. When Xiao Qin was in the wrestling ring, he finally felt the might of the golden cauldron drum. The sound of the drum resounded in his ears, and his blood surged uncontrollably. Xiao Qian's aura gathered on its own, rising continuously. It was like he was in an ancient battlefield. His heart was filled with lofty aspirations, and he only wanted to fight with all his might. However, if he did that, he would fall for the wrestling ring's trick. The purpose of the golden cauldron drum was to make the challengers go all out in every match, going all out without realizing it. Every match would result in a lot of unnecessary exhaustion. In the long run, one's essence would be exhausted, and it would be very difficult to continue winning. Xiao Qian's vast spiritual sense turned into an ancient bell in his sea of consciousness. It gave off a drawn-out chime, and he immediately calmed down. Hu Qi. After observing for a long time, Xiao Yang could not find any openings in Xiao Qian. He took a step forward and drew his sword. He had no choice but to take the initiative to attack. Xiao Qian did not dodge. He took a step forward and punched. A pure energy clashed with Xiao Yang's sword. Bang! Bang! The fist wind and the sword qi clashed continuously, giving off explosions in the air. Xiao Yang passed through the shockwaves created by the explosions and thrust his sword at Xiao Qian's face. Xiao Qian tilted his head slightly and dodged this sword. When the sword brushed past his face, he used 2 fingers on his right hand and flicked the sword heavily. Boom! A huge force came from Xiao Yang's fingers, spreading from the tip of the sword to the hilt. The sword started to tremble. Xiao Yang felt like the sword in his hand was trying to struggle free. His body could not help but be pulled forward by the force of the sword. What a strong force! Xiao Yang had not expected Xiao Qian to be so strong. He did not seem like an inferior-grade martial king at all. Xiao Yang was caught off guard and suffered a small disadvantage. However, he did not panic. Xiao Qian accurately calculated the moment Xiao Qian landed. He shouted and clenched his right hand into a fist, punching out. Xiao Yang had a relaxed expression, he was not too shocked. He executed that strange movement technique again. The instant Xiao Qian moved, Xiao Yang sensed the direction of his attack. Xiao Yang pushed off the ground and quickly retreated in the opposite direction. This strange movement technique, which allowed Xiao Yang to predict the future, had caused Yun Ping's killing moves to miss several times during their fight. Now, Xiao Yang used it on Xiao Qian, dodging in advance. Xiao Qian stopped and stored up power in his fist. He looked at the retreating Xiao Yang and smiled gently, "Can you dodge?" Blood Flame Shoes, activate. Xiao. Xiao Qian's speed instantly increased to Mach 3. 5. Xiao Yang had just stabilized his footing when he discovered an intense fist wind, accompanied by the roars of a tiger and a dragon, flying at him. Retreat. Xiao Yang was startled. He executed his strange movement technique again. He perfectly calculated the direction of Xiao Qian's next attack and quickly retreated in the opposite direction. However, Xiao Qian stopped and changed his direction. Then, he immediately attacked again. Boom! 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 Accompanied by the roars of a tiger and a dragon, Xiao Qian punched out with both fists. The fist wind was like a torrential storm as it flew at the retreating Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang executed that strange movement technique to its limits. However, no matter what he did, he could not shake off Xiao Qian. Every time he retreated, he would suffer a sharp fist wind. Xiao Yang brandished his sword and a fiery light flickered. Although he managed to negate a portion of the fist energy, the remaining fist energy struck his body. The accumulated injuries could not be underestimated. When the many cultivators in the spectator stands saw this scene, astonishment flashed in their eyes. They had not expected this. The originally expected scene of Xiao Yang easily crushing his opponent did not happen. Instead, a nameless brat pressured the 10 victories Terminator into a miserable state. Scram! Xiao Yang finally realized that his movement technique was useless against Xiao Chen. After Xiao Yang made up his mind, his sword lit up with a fiery light. Then, he clashed with Xiao Chen's fist wind. Xiao Yang accurately calculated the force of Xiao Chen's fist wind. If Xiao Chen dared to clash head-on, he was confident of inflicting a great loss on him. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "You are the one who should scram." The purple chi whirlpool spun rapidly. Surging essence poured into Xiao Chen's right fist through his widened meridians. Boom! The instant the essence and vital chi merged, an intense wind burst out of Xiao Chen's fist, stirring up small tornadoes in the air. Xiao Chen's punch instantly contained 350,000 kilograms of force. Bang! 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 The rapid increase in strength exceeded Xiao Yang's expectations. It was like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. It shattered the fiery red essence energy on the sword, causing it to crumble and fall apart. Chapter 439. Xiao Chen's aura flourished. Dragons and tigers circled around him, roaring endlessly. His fists danced, and in an instant, he had punched more than 100 times. Bang! Xiao Yang's protective essence energy could no longer withstand it. The powerful force shattered it. Xiao Chen smiled coldly and knocked away his opponent's sword light with one punch. Then, he punched his opponent's chest with the other. Xiao Yang vomited a mouthful of blood and fell from the sky. His face was pale, without any color. Damn it! State of fear. Xiao Yang said with a malevolent expression as he wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. Woo! Woo! A strange aura spread out from Xiao Yang's body. Soon, it encased Xiao Chen. When Xiao Yang felt that Xiao Chen was within the range of his chi field, a cocky smile appeared on his face. As long as Xiao Chen entered this chi field, he would not be able to escape. As long as Xiao Chen entered this aura, he was confident of defeating even a peak superior grade martial king. Even if an inferior grade martial king cultivated a heaven-ranked cultivation technique and had surging essence, he would still be able to defeat him easily. Xiao Chen felt a strange energy like a sponge, trying to penetrate his mind. However, the ancient bell formed by Xiao Chen's spiritual sense in his sea of consciousness shook gently and shattered this sponge-like energy. He did not feel anything, it had no effect on Xiao Chen. Indeed, it is as I guessed. A state that can affect emotions definitely involves mental energy. Xiao Chen's mental energy is comparable to that of a martial monarch. Before Xiao Chen, Xiao Yang's state of fear was simply not sufficient. The drumbeats reverberated endlessly, keeping a firm grasp on the rhythm of the battle. It was as if they sensed that the battle had reached its most intense moment. The drummer seemed to be exerting all the strength in his body. Every beat of the drum struck the deepest part of the hearts of the crowd. Everyone's hearts pounded, they were extremely nervous. Fall for me. Xiao Yang smashed the ground with his left palm and his body shot up. Sparks danced on his sword and quickly turned into a blazing flame, burning endlessly. Xiao Chen's expression was incredibly calm. He watched Xiao Yang fly over and attack with all his might. Soon, he found the weakness of this move. Bang! When he was 3 meters away from Xiao Chen calmly kicked out his foot. The tip of his foot accurately kicked the wrist of the man who was holding the sword. His wrist bone immediately shattered, and the long sword fell to the ground with a clang. The surging fire attribute Yuan Qi immediately turned into countless sparks that scattered around the two of them. His right leg, which was still in the air, did not land on the ground. Instead, it slid downwards, and with a light hook, it landed on Xiao Yang's chin. Xiao Yang spat out another mouthful of blood. This kick sent Xiao Yang tumbling to the ground. Impossible. How could you resist my domain of fear? You must have used some sort of cheating method. Xiao Yang said crazily as he placed both his hands on the ground. Xiao Qin could not be bothered to say more. He directly kicked him 100 meters away, and he slid down a distance on the ground. The drumming stopped abruptly. The result of this battle was self-evident. Bang! Up in the tall tower, Gao Yangyu, who had been watching the battle closely, was enraged when he saw the result. He slammed his palm on the table made of sandalwood. Damn it! Why is there something wrong with this Xiao Yang? Normally, he can defeat a peak superior grade martial king. Now, he cannot even deal with an insignificant inferior grade martial king. The old man beside Gao Yangyu muttered, Xiao Yang's two trump cards, the butterfly steps and the state of fear, were completely countered by this fellow. It is not strange that he lost. After all, aside from these 2 points, Xiao Yang is only an ordinary superior grade martial king. Gao Yangyu waved his hand and said, I don't care how you arrange it. Since we cannot let him lose 100 matches, we have to make him lose at least 40 matches. Otherwise, we will not be able to answer to Li Shuzhu. Gao Yangyu's original plan was to send Xiao Yang out and severely injure Xiao Chen in the first match. This would greatly reduce his strength. Then, he could easily make Xiao Chen lose 10 matches in a row. However, the situation had turned around. Xiao Chen did not suffer any serious injuries and easily defeated Xiao Yang. His plan to lose 100 matches in a row was completely ruined. The old man could clearly feel that this Xiao Chen was not easy to deal with. When he heard Gao Yangyu's angry words, he felt immense pressure in his heart. City Lord Gao, how about this? We will not send out any of our people for today's 10 matches. Let him fight 10 matches first. How about we send someone to deal with him after the Elders' Hall thoroughly analyzes his strength? The elder suggested. Gao Yangyu's expression turned sullen, and his thoughts raced. After a while, he said, we will do as you say. However, we cannot neglect the matters of the others. We still have to advertise them. No matter what, earning money is the most important. Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon. Xiao Chen crossed his arms and formed a strong wall of qi. A tiger and dragon circled around him, blocking his opponent's strong attack. Dragon Hissing Tiger Roar. Defeat. Using the momentum and energy of Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon, Xiao Chen brought out the might of the Great Dragon Tiger Fist to its limits. The ferocious fist energy caused his opponent to vomit blood. The war drums stopped, but the hearts of the many cultivators in the spectator stands did not stop. What a fellow! This is already his 9th consecutive victory. After defeating Xiao Yang, he became more and more valiant. He did not show any signs of exhaustion. Unexpectedly, he dual cultivates the physical body and essence. Each match is stronger than the one before. I can't tell what his strongest state is. Originally, I thought that Xiao Yang lost because he was careless. It looks like his defeat was not undeserved. After defeating Xiao Yang, Xiao Chen's momentum soared. He won another 8 matches in a row, setting off the first small climax of the wrestling ring. As the war drums beat, the emotions of the spectators were stirred up. The sounds of discussion did not stop for a long time. It is possible that he will be the first person to obtain 10 consecutive victories. He is much stronger than Yunping, who went up first. Let's wait and see who will choose to go up first. After the consecutive battles in the wrestling ring, Xiao Chen's fighting spirit was completely stimulated. However, his eyes remained calm. No matter how loud the war drums were, Xiao Chen maintained his composure and put in as much effort as he could. After a minute, Xiao Chen's 10th challenger finally arrived. He was also a cultivator who specialized in close combat. He was a peak superior grade martial king. However, his cultivation technique did not seem to be anything special. Although his cultivation realm was high, his aura did not seem very strong. He should only be a medial grade earth-ranked cultivation technique. Good martial techniques were hard to find, but cultivation techniques were hard to find. This was a very common saying in the continent. Even in the strong sects and clans, they only had a few superior grade earth-ranked cultivation techniques. Peak earth-class cultivation techniques were even rarer. As for heaven-class cultivation techniques, they were only passed down from generation to generation in a few top sections. Bai Ming Feng, please advise me. The challenger performed a cupped fist salute and reported his name. As the war drums sounded out, the two immediately started fighting. Bang! 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 The two of them used their fists and feet to fight. Hence, the fight was very intense. Punches and feet flew back and forth, every move was a head-on clash. However, the other party's attainments in fist techniques were much higher than Xiao Chen's. His coordination with his fists and feet was much more agile than Xiao Chen's. Soon, Xiao Chen received several punches. However, the attacks that Xiao Chen landed on his opponent were barely half of his opponent's. The Great Dragon Tiger Fist was only a medial grade earth-ranked martial technique, it was not considered a peak martial technique. It was not difficult to understand why an expert proficient in close combat would end up in such a situation. If not for the black gloves increasing Xiao Chen's attack speed, the situation would have been even more unsightly. However, Xiao Chen had the advantage in terms of his strong physical defense. His vital qi and essence far surpassed his opponent's. The force of one punch was equivalent to 5 or 6 punches from his opponent. When Xiao Chen's essence and vital qi merged, he could force his opponent back. After exchanging more than 100 moves, Bai Ming Feng's complexion turned pale. Blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. Although Xiao Chen was not in a good state, it was still within the limits of what his body could endure. The cleansing of a heaven-ranked cultivation technique had strengthened his flesh, bones, and meridians. This was no joke. I'm not fighting anymore. I admit defeat. After exchanging another 200 moves, Bai Ming Feng's complexion was completely drained of blood. The qi and blood in his body surged. If he continued, he would suffer severe internal injuries. Xiao Chen withdrew his hand and retreated, no longer attacking. I am not weaker than you. It is just that your physical body and cultivation technique are slightly stronger than mine. If I had the same physical condition as you, even 10 of you would not be a match for me. Bai Ming Feng wiped off the blood from the corner of his lips, feeling extremely dissatisfied. Xiao Chen said indifferently, a win is a win. A loss is a loss. Why are there so many reasons? Xiao Chen found Bai Ming Feng's words laughable. The accomplishments of his physical body could not be explained in one sentence. Before the age of 16, Xiao Chen could not condense a martial spirit. All the spiritual energy he absorbed poured into his flesh and bones, laying a good foundation for his body. However, because of this, he was mocked for close to 6 years. In the underground world of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Song Ke nearly killed him with one palm strike, nearly causing him to lose his soul. After Xiao Chen obtained an earth-ranked body-tempering cultivation technique, he finally stepped into the threshold of physical cultivation. Every time he fought for a spirit herb, there were all sorts of dangerous battles. After Xiao Chen obtained a heaven-ranked body-tempering cultivation technique, he suffered 3 types of inhumane torture. However, he endured all of them. The path of physical body cultivation was filled with thorns and thorns. Every step was extremely difficult. Xiao Chen had relied on his strong willpower to persevere until now. How could it be as simple as the other party made it out to be? What nonsense! Bai Ming Feng tossed over a box of spirit stones and smiled without a care in the world. Haha, it is as you said. The loser does not need to find excuses. However, your good days will come to an end tomorrow. You can take the spirit stones away. I can't be bothered to go over. Xiao Chen committed the other party's words to heart. He did not say anything more. He put away the spirit stones and headed for the spectator stands. Although Xiao Chen felt suspicious, he was sure that someone was targeting him. Xiao Yang and this Bai Ming Feng were sent by that person. However, if Xiao Chen took the initiative to ask this fellow, he would not get any results. So, there was no need to ask. When the gray-robed old man saw Xiao Chen return, he handed him the remaining 1,500 spirit stones. He smiled and said, "Congratulations, little brother, you are the first to obtain 10 consecutive victories." Xiao Chen received the spirit stones and thanked the gray-robed old man. Then, he walked to the back of the crowd. So. As he walked, Xiao Chen could feel many gazes on him. There were also all sorts of perceptions trying to probe him. Chapter 440. Strange, he is clearly only an inferior grade martial king. Why is he so ridiculously strong? The outstanding talents of the various nations withdrew their perception. Doubts filled their hearts. The strength that Xiao Chen displayed had already raised their guard. He was definitely a strong competitor in the fight for the ancient desolate tower. They had no choice but to pay more attention to him. Xia Shiyan, Jiang Zimo, and Mu Xinya all congratulated Xiao Chen one after another. The matches continued. For a long time, no one obtained 10 consecutive victories. This continued until the beast-taming abode's Pei Shaoxian appeared. He finally became the second person to obtain 10 consecutive victories. Furthermore, Pei Shaoxian had obtained 10 consecutive victories even more effortlessly than Xiao Chen. This attracted even more attention. In every battle, Xiao Chen summoned out 7 or 8 high-ranked spirit beasts. He did not have to do anything himself. Instead, he hid at the side and controlled the spirit beasts to surround his opponent. Xiao Chen easily won every battle. He did not exhaust much of his energy. After that, the 3 people who appeared, Ding Fengqiu, Jiang Zimo, and Mu Xinya, obtained 10 consecutive victories. This brought the atmosphere of the wrestling ring to a climax. Each of these people was more incredible than the last. Each victory was more dazzling than the last. They completely suppressed Xiao Chen's brilliance. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He did not care too much about this kind of reputation. As long as he could obtain victory using the least amount of energy, it was sufficient. The matches continued until the sky turned dark. Only then did the matches of more than 100 people come to an end. A total of 7 people obtained 10 consecutive victories. They were Xiao Chen, Jiang Zimo, Ding Fengqiu, Mu Xinya, Pei Shaoxian, Xia Shiyan, and the Holy Fire Manners Leng Yun, whom Xiao Chen was wary of. However, Leng Yun did not pay any special attention to Xiao Chen because of the dispute between Xiao Chen and Old Qin. It was clear that he did not care. Not far from the wrestling ring, there was a small and exquisite courtyard. This was where the crowd would be staying for the next 5 days. Night fell completely, and the sky was filled with dazzling starlight. Xiao Chen sat cross-legged in his courtyard and cleaned up the hidden injuries from today's matches. In every battle, no matter how strong a martial artist was, he or she would leave behind more or less hidden injuries. If they were not cleaned up in time, they would become hidden injuries. At that time, it would be very troublesome to deal with them. Xiao Chen had developed this good habit a long time ago. After every battle, he would promptly clean up his internal injuries. An hour later, Xiao Chen opened his eyes. All the internal injuries in his body had recovered under the nourishment of the essence qi. Xiao Chen was not in a hurry to sleep. He still had many things to do. He slowly replayed the battle during the day in his mind. Thinking back to the beginning, he got up and started practicing alone in the room. He wanted to see what he didn't do well enough so that he could be better prepared the next time he encountered the same situation. Although my physical body is strong, I can't keep up with the martial techniques of my fists and legs. The medial grade earth-ranked Great Dragon Tiger Fist can no longer keep up with my rhythm. In the end, Xiao Qin concluded. The last battle with Bai Feng was the best proof. When facing a cultivator who also specialized in fists and legs, Xiao Qin was at a complete disadvantage in terms of techniques. If it were not for his strong physical body, he might have had to draw his saber. Xiao Qin muttered to himself, after this matter is over, it looks like I need to find a peak earth-ranked fist technique to practice. It was already late. Xiao Qin did not dwell on this. He took out 2 medial-grade spirit stones and held them in his hands. Then, he entered into a state of cultivation. The next morning, Xiao Qin woke up early. The moment he left the courtyard, he ran into Xia Xiyan and Xiao Chen, who had gone out together. After they greeted each other, the 3 of them headed to the wrestling ring together. Along the way, Xiao Rou did not seem to be in good spirits. She had only won 3 matches yesterday. Her lack of combat experience was a fatal flaw. This was especially so when she met with cultivators with dense killing chi. Before the fight even started, she was already afraid. However, others would not be able to help her. If she could endure it, she would be able to grow quickly in the wrestling ring. If she could not endure it, she would not be able to walk out of the shadow of defeat. It would be difficult for her to improve in the future. Whether it was a blessing or a disaster depended on her. Xiao Chen, I heard some news about you, Xia Xiyan suddenly said just as they were about to enter the wrestling ring. Xiao Chen stopped and said, is it about someone taking special care of me in the wrestling ring? Xia Xiyan nodded. She had a worried expression on her face as she said, Li Xiuzhu is famous in the Heavenly Extermination Union for seeking revenge for the smallest grievance. He is very narrow-minded. Back then, when you embarrassed him in front of everyone, he already spoke to Gao Yangyu. Indeed, it was Li Xiuzhu's doing. It was as Xiao Qin had guessed. Thank you. However, half-step martial monarchs cannot participate in the rank A wrestling ring. It should not be a problem for me to obtain 60 victories. Xia Xiyan shook her head and said, it is not as simple as you think. In order to prevent people from obtaining too many consecutive victories, the wrestling ring has a special group of cultivators below half-step martial monarch to snipe the participants. Although these people are not half-step martial monarchs, they all have their own consummate skills. Just like Xiao Yang, there are also some old monsters that have lived for more than 100 years. They are truly undefeatable people below half-step martial monarch. Xia Xiyan continued, think about Gao Yangyu. If he specifically targets you and sends someone to severely injure you in the first match of the day, what will happen to the next 10-odd matches? Seeing that Xiao Qin did not seem to mind, Xiaoro said, my senior sister has already told you so much. Why are you not worried at all? Xiao Qin smiled bitterly and helplessly, I am very worried. However, there is no need to show it on my face. Furthermore, worrying is useless. I will deal with whatever comes my way. In any case, I must obtain the 20 spots in the ancient desolate tower. No one can stop me. Thank you for reminding me. Let's go in. Xia Xiyan sighed softly to herself. It was indeed as Xiao Qin said. So what if I worry? It will not solve the problem. Everyone else had already arrived at the spectator stands reserved for the participants of the wrestling ring. Xiao Qin found a desolate corner. After he sat down, he ignored the gazes of the others and sat down cross-legged. Then, he started to cultivate the firmament body tempering art's 4th layer. Is there any use in clinging at the last minute? When the beast-taming abodes Pei Xiaoxian saw this scene, he could not help but laugh. The others shook their heads as well, expressing their disagreement. What could they do during the day? They might as well observe their opponent's strength. Even Jiang Zimo and Ding Fengqiu felt that there was no need. Unless they wanted to make a breakthrough, cultivating now would be useful. However, that was not the case for Xiao Qin. Furthermore, after advancing to Martial King, it was not easy to break through a bottleneck. There were many geniuses who could not break through even after half a year. After watching the wrestling rings for a day, Xiaoqin had a rough understanding of everyone's strength. If not for Xia Xiyan, Xiaoqin might have continued watching for another day. However, he now felt a sense of danger. Xiaoqin would never fight a battle he was not confident of winning. Only by breaking through to the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer would he be confident of obtaining 60 victories. Thus, from now on, he could not waste any time. As for what others thought, why should he care? Dong! 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 Amid the drumming, Xiaoqian's mental state was as calm as a lake. There were no fluctuations at all. He focused on cultivating the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer. Xiaoqin separated a strand of his spiritual sense and placed it on the gray-robed old man. Cultivating was one thing, but he could not forget about the wrestling rings. As Xiaoqin circulated his vital qi throughout his body, strands of hot energy came from the top of his head. That was the excess energy that came from circulating his vital qi. Time slowly went by. Xiaoqin turned a deaf ear to the noise and liveliness of the wrestling ring. It was like he was in a forest, quiet and peaceful. Number 15, go up quickly. After some time, Xiaoqian's strand of spiritual sense heard the old man's voice. Then, he slowly opened his eyes. When the gray-robed old man saw the calm Xiaoqian, a strange look flashed in his eyes. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. Standing in the wrestling ring, Xiaoqian performed a cupped fist salute to the surroundings and said, "I am the great Qin nation's Xiaoqian. Everyone, please enlighten me." In the tall tower in the distance, Gao Yangyu watched expressionlessly as Xiaoqian entered the wrestling ring. He said to the old man beside him, "How is the person you mentioned? Are you confident of severely injuring him in the first match?" According to the rules of the wrestling ring, everyone could only fight twice in a day. Although Gao Yangyu had hired many experts, the wrestling ring did not have enough strength. Although Gao Yangyu had hired many experts, there were many participants. Furthermore, each participant had to fight 18 matches. It was impossible to place all the experts he hired on Xiaoqian. Thus, the first match was the most crucial. As long as he could severely injure Xiaoqian in the first match, Gao Yangyu would not have to waste his resources on the remaining matches. For the sake of the Spirit Stone reward, the spectators would also fight. Defeating the severely injured Xiaoqian would not be a problem. If Gao Yangyu lost 18 matches in one day, he would be able to deal with this troublesome Xiaoqian in 2.5 days. The old man knew the frustration and rage in Gao Yangyu's heart. He patted his chest and guaranteed, "City Lord, don't worry. The elders analyzed the 10 matches yesterday. This person is extremely strong, and his physical body's defense is extraordinary. However, his palm techniques are not very exquisite. As long as we find someone with a stronger physical body, we will be able to crush him easily." Gao Yangyu said sullenly, "Can you guarantee that?" The old man said with certainty, "There is absolutely no problem. If he cannot withstand severe injuries, City Lord, you can severely injure me." Compared to that person, Xiaoqian's physical body is on a completely different level. When Gao Yangyu heard this, he was slightly relieved. When Xiaoqian entered the dueling ring, the previously calm dueling ring immediately turned noisy as everyone discussed the dueling ring. Although Jiang Zimo and the others had stolen the limelight from Xiaoqian's performance the previous day, he was still the first person to set off a climax. Everyone was still filled with anticipation. Bang! After a while, a tall and stout man carrying a huge axe leaped out from his seat. As this person flew, he did not give off any fluctuations of essence. Unexpectedly, he was someone who cultivated the physical body. Bang! When the stout man landed on the ground, he gave off a loud sound and kicked up a cloud of dust into the air. Xiaoqian peered through the dust and saw this person's appearance. He could not help but reveal a smile. "By Lishi, you actually dare to appear before me. You are extraordinarily courageous." Chapter 441. Who else could the cultivator that the old man mentioned be other than Bai Lishi? In the ancient desolate land, only Bai Lishi fulfilled the criteria. Bai Lishi smiled somewhat embarrassedly and said, "Before I came up, I really did not know it was you. They did not tell me your name." Xiaoqin smiled faintly and said, "Why should I care so much about you? If you want to fight, fine. Just return the medial grade secret treasure to me first." Bai Lishi cursed helplessly, "Damn it. Every time I run into you, nothing good ever happens. I just heard that there are rank wrestling rings here, so I wanted to come and earn some money. Who knew I would run into you?" Since Bai Lishi knew that Gao Yangyu wanted to deal with Xiaoqin, naturally, he did not intend to make a move. Although Bai Lishi was greedy, talkative, and short-tempered, he was not an ungrateful person. Since Bai Lishi had recognized Xiaoqin as a friend, he would not betray him. Furthermore, Bai Lishi had taken a medial grade secret treasure from Xiaoqin previously. Logically or emotionally, he would not help an outsider deal with his friend. Damn it. You can just casually defeat me in a few moves. That way, I will be able to report back. However, let me make this clear first. You are not allowed to hit my face, chest, or lower body. The most important thing is not to hurt me. Bai Lishi had a bitter expression on his face as he nagged. Xiaoqin smiled faintly and said, "No problem, as you wish." Hence, the tens of thousands of people present saw an exaggerated scene that no one had seen in the hundreds of years since Wrestling City was built. Xiaoqin's figure flashed and arrived behind Bai Lishi. He merged his essence and vital qi into his body and kicked Bai Lishi's butt. Bang! There was a loud sound as Bai Lishi shot up into the air like a cannonball. The wrestling ring was several kilometers away from the spectator stands, but Bai Lishi flew over it. The fiery pain from his butt nearly caused Bai Lishi to collapse. The pain made his facial features scrunch up tightly. He was not allowed to hit her face, chest, or lower body. Other than hitting her butt, Xiaoqin really couldn't think of where else to kick. As for not hurting him, that was nonsense. How could it not hurt when hitting someone? In any case, this guy's body was stronger than his. A full-powered kick wouldn't hurt him. Bang! When the people below saw Bai Lishi's falling body, they quickly dodged to the side. His huge body immediately smashed the stone seats into smithereens. Fuck! Bai Lishi crawled to his feet and cursed. Then, he quickly ran out of the wrestling ring. Gao Yangyu's men would definitely cause trouble for him. He had no choice but to run faster. He would not even have the chance to vent his anger at Xiaoqin. He felt extremely depressed. The audience's jaws dropped. They were so shocked that they didn't know what to say. They didn't expect this to happen. The person with an even wider jaw than them was the old man beside Gao Yangyu. His face was filled with astonishment, and his eyes were filled with confusion. He had never imagined that such a scene would occur. "You filthy thing!" Gao Yangyu flew into a rage and kicked the old man, breaking several of his ribs. The other old men in the room remained silent, not daring to say anything. Even though the commotion was over, the matches had to continue. Xiaoqin had already won 11 matches in a row. The rewards for defeating him were considerable. Although the rewards would not catch the attention of some of the peak experts, they were still a great source of income for many cultivators. In the following 17 matches, Xiaoqin only used vital qi, he did not even use his essence. Xiaoqin did this so that he could break through to the firmament body tempering art's 4th layer. In Bai Lishi's cultivation book, he had written about the key to quickly tempering the physical body. One of the most important points was to use pure vital qi to fight. Feeling the circulation of vital qi in the body and comprehending the mysteries of vital qi in battle was the fastest. In the 17 matches, as long as there was no life-threatening or serious injury, Xiaoqin chose to use vital qi to fight his enemies. The people who fought today were clearly stronger than the previous day. Many people were already familiar with Xiaoqin's combat techniques and thought of countermeasures. Every match was very difficult. Wounds slowly appeared on Xiao Chen's body. He was no longer as relaxed as the previous day. Some cultivators even found some of the mistakes that Xiao Chen had made, wanting to make Xiao Chen pay a heavy price. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen had carefully analyzed his matches the previous night. He would not make the same mistakes again. Furthermore, he could make use of the arrogance of these people to beat them at their own game, achieving an unexpected result. This fellow has a strong talent for combat. Although every match looked like it was not easy for him to win, he did win all of them. Let's wait and see first. If Jiang Zimo and the others do not perform well, I will bet 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones on him. Unfortunately, there is too little information on him in Wrestling City. They did not advertise him at all. On the contrary, Ding Fengqiu and the others did their best to advertise him. Xiao Chen's successive victories gave the crowd some anticipation for Xiao Chen's strength. Everyone started discussing him. After the 18 matches ended, Xiao Chen paid a significant price. He was even in a somewhat sorry state. However, he still managed to walk forward step by step, obtaining all the victories. Xiao Chen's clothes were tattered, and wounds of various sizes covered his body. Everyone could tell that Xiao Chen had not won easily. I think we should not bet on him. When the medial grade spirit stone reward breaks 10,000, it will attract some experts. When it reaches 100,000, all the peak experts will come out. He is already having such a hard time now. He will not be able to do it tomorrow. The day after that will be even more difficult. After the 18 matches ended, Xiao Chen became the first person to obtain 28 consecutive victories. Although his strength was acknowledged, the situation was not very good to look at. Many people believed that he would be defeated after he accumulated enough spirit stones to break his winning streak. Xiao Chen suppressed the injuries in his body and walked over to the gray-robed cultivator. Then, he received the 7,400 medial-grade spirit stones that belonged to him. In addition to the 3,000 that he obtained yesterday, Xiao Chen had already obtained more than 10,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. This was equivalent to a tenth of his wealth. The gray-robed old man handed the spirit stones to Xiao Chen with some heartache. He said, "Congratulations, you are the first person to obtain 28 consecutive victories." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and thanked the gray-robed old man. Then, he received the spirit stones and returned to his corner. Xiao Chen sat down cross-legged and circulated his energy to treat his injuries. Today's fight was twice as intense as yesterday's. Furthermore, Xiao Chen did not use his essence. There were even more hidden injuries on his body. He had to deal with them as soon as possible. However, after using his vital qi to fight 17 consecutive high-intensity matches, Xiao Chen gained a new understanding of the way of cultivating the physical body. If nothing unexpected happened, the cultivation speed of the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer would definitely increase by another layer. Several people in the crowd looked at Xiao Chen and shook their heads. They still felt that doing so would not be of much use. Ha ha! No wonder he works so hard. It is not easy to win every match. It would be strange if he did not work harder. The people of the Great Qin nation are not very talented. Their brains are not very good either. If cramming at the last minute is useful, then what is the point of working hard normally? That's right. With one look, I can tell that he does not put in much effort normally. Otherwise, why would he still think about cultivating before a fight? Paying attention to his opponent's fighting style and techniques is what he should be doing now. How foolish. When they saw Xiao Chen sit down cross-legged again, they all mocked him. Actually, some of their words contained jealousy for Xiao Chen's consecutive victories. This was especially so for the people who fought before Xiao Chen. They had not obtained consecutive victories. Furthermore, they did not think that they were weaker than Xiao Chen. Even Xiao Chen could obtain consecutive victories, but they could not. The disparity in their hearts could be easily imagined. Now that they saw Xiao Chen's strange actions, they could not help but mock him. This was especially so for Yunping, who was the first to fight. His consecutive victories had ended in the last match. He was in a bad mood, so the one who spoke the nastiest words was him. Even this kind of trash can obtain consecutive victories. His luck is really fucking good. Xia Shiyan, Jiang Zimo, Mu Xinya, and the others who were on good terms with Xiao Chen did not find this strange. Furthermore, they knew that Xiao Chen would not care, so they could not be bothered with this group of people. However, Xiaoro could not help it. Back then, Xiao Chen had helped her obtain an iron medallion. This had improved her impression of him significantly. Furthermore, Xiao Chen was still young and had purer thoughts. When he saw the crowd continuously ridiculing him, he could no longer endure it. He said, "You people cannot obtain consecutive victories, so you go and mock others. Is there any meaning to it? You are really shameless." Yunping laughed loudly, "We are speaking the truth. How are we mocking him? Furthermore, what is the point of having consecutive victories? He just needs to obtain 60 victories. That's right. He just needs to obtain 60 victories. With his strength, he already had such a difficult time winning today. Can he still obtain consecutive victories tomorrow? Furthermore, you are just a little girl. What qualifications do you have to criticize us? You did not even obtain 5 victories yesterday." Ha ha ha. When the group of people saw that Ruru had seen through their thoughts, their expressions became very unhappy. One by one, they pointed their spears at her. Chapter 442. Xiao Rou's delicate face flushed red with anger. So many people were talking about her. Even if she wanted to, she would not be able to win. Xia Shiyan pulled Xiao Rou behind her and looked coldly at the crowd. A murderous intent gathered in the depths of her eyes. She said sullenly, "Is there any point in a group of men bullying a little girl?" When the crowd felt Xia Shiyan's murderous intent, they did not say anything. After all, Xia Shiyan's strength was clear for all to see. Furthermore, she had become famous long ago. She was one of the peak geniuses of the great Xia nation. It was not a good thing to offend her. The matches continued, but it no longer had anything to do with Xiao Chen. He was completely immersed in cultivating the firmament body tempering art. The mockery and rumors of the outside world entered Xiao Chen's ears. He simply ignored them, they were just a bunch of jumping clowns. Xiao Chen only quickly digested the comprehensions he gained today and used them to break through to the 4th layer of the firmament body tempering art. Xiao Chen's improvement was much greater than he had imagined. Vital qi flowed through his entire body, surging in his 300-odd acupoints. The blue dragon hidden in his acupoints enjoyed this vital qi. Every time his vital qi surged, Xiao Chen could feel the greedy expression on the blue dragon's face. After the blue dragon martial spirit was shattered by Song Kei's palm strike, it scattered throughout the acupoints of his body. As Xiao Chen's vital qi grew, the blue dragon qi sealed in his acupoints would automatically open up. Such a reason was also an important reason why Xiao Chen could not give up on cultivating his physical body. The strength of the azure dragon energy was the best proof of that. The azure dragon tattoo on his right arm was the best proof. Time slowly went by, and the sky slowly turned dark. Xiao Chen had already cultivated for 14 to 16 hours. The matches in the wrestling ring also slowly came to an end. The 7 people who obtained consecutive victories from the previous day all advanced to the next round. Their victories were magnificent and effortless. This was a stark contrast to Xiao Chen's arduous battles. This made the crowd in the spectator stands even more certain that Xiao Chen would not be able to obtain 60 consecutive victories. The fight had ended. According to the rules, the contestants could leave. Xiao Chen got up and returned to his courtyard. After dinner, Xiao Chen went to a relatively open area in the courtyard and started to think about his battle plan for the day. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that the Great Dragon Tiger Fist had too many flaws. There were too few moves, and the transition between offense and defense wasn't fast enough. As a result, when they encountered martial artists with exquisite moves, they would fall into a passive position. Looks like I have to make some changes tomorrow, Xiaochen thought to himself. I'll make some improvements to my fist technique first. With his current realm, he was still unable to create his own fist technique. However, it was not a problem for him to make some changes that suited him. 2 hours later, Xiaochen finally finished modifying the Dragon Tiger Fist. He then continued to charge towards the 4th stage of the Great Dragon Tiger Fist. He felt that he wasn't far from the lesser mastery of the 4th stage. At the same time, in the tall tower of the wrestling ring, in Gao Yangyu's room, a group of old men were busily tabulating the information. City Lord Gao, we have already tabulated the bets for today. Ding Fengqiu and the other 5 people you mentioned have already bet more than 5 million medial grade spirit stones. They should have no problem breaking 10 million tomorrow. An old man holding a stack of information said carefully. Gao Yangyu had been in a bad mood the entire day. When he heard the tabulation, his expression warmed up slightly. He smiled and said, as expected. The day after tomorrow is the last day to place bets. In that case, we will release the news that we are candidates for the ancient desolate tower tomorrow. It is not impossible for the bets to break 50 million medial grade spirit stones. The room in the tall tower was very large. 7 cultivators with strong auras sat in a corner to the west, resting with their eyes closed. Among the 7, some had white hair and eyebrows. It was unknown how long they had lived. Others had killing intent written all over their faces. Even with their eyes closed, one could feel a horrifying killing intent. There were also some with electric currents flickering around their bodies, small tornadoes, or strands of flames appearing out of nowhere. Clearly, these people had comprehended their respective states to the limit. Even with their eyes closed, they could still emit energy without them realizing it. When they heard that the bets this time might break 50 million medial grade spirit stones, joy flashed on the faces of the 7. City Lord, what should we do about that brat called Xiaochen? Should we invite the 7 guest elders to come out? Any one of them should be able to crush him easily. Gao Yangyu glanced at the 7 people in the corner and shook his head. No, each person can only fight twice. This is only the 3rd day. This is too much of a waste. The old man continued, in that case, should we invite Shifeng to come out and let him cripple Xiaochen in an instant? He won't even have time to admit defeat. Gao Yangyu shook his head and said, that is even more impossible. Shifeng is the treasure of the ancient desolate tower. If someone really obtained more than 60 consecutive victories, do you want me to go bankrupt? Never mind, don't bother about this matter. I will make a move personally and make a trip to Desolate City tonight. On the morning of the 3rd day of the wrestling ring, Xiaochen sat on his bed and suddenly opened his eyes. The acupoints on his left palm and wrist suddenly burst open. 2 strands of dragon chi flew out and filled Xiaochen's left hand. Bang! Xiaochen clenched his left hand into a fist and punched the air. His vital chi surged out and suddenly exploded. Ripples appeared in the air. As the ripples spread, the entire room trembled slightly. Xiaochen revealed a joyful expression after his consecutive victories. He stood up from his bed and smiled. I finally reached small perfection in the firmament body tempering art's 4th layer. Unexpectedly, my vital chi increased by 10,000 kilograms of force and I managed to burst open 2 acupoints. If the 4th layer reached consummation, it would be possible to increase his strength by 50,000 kilograms of force. The effects of a heaven-ranked body tempering cultivation technique were indeed extraordinary. Right now, Xiaochen's vital chi was already very vast. Every increase of 5,000 kilograms of force was incomparably difficult. Back then, Bai Lishi had been stuck at this stage for decades. Xiaochen was very fortunate to be able to obtain a heaven-ranked body tempering art right after he reached this bottleneck. The sky was already bright. Xiaochen headed for the wrestling ring and entered the spectator stands. When the gray-robed old man found Xiaochen, he immediately said, Xiaochen, give me your iron medallion. It has been changed to number 125. Number 125 was the last person to fight. Xiao Chen did not ask any questions and directly handed over his iron medallion. When the gray-robed old man saw Xiao Chen's calm expression, accepting the change and immediately leaving without saying anything, he felt a pressure in his heart for some reason. This fellow is so calm that it is scary. To Xiao Chen, there was no difference between number 15 and 125. As for what schemes there were, the gray-robed old man did not care. In this wrestling ring, the other party had the final say. Xiao Chen did not have any chance to argue over such a small matter. After arriving at his own corner, Xiao Chen ignored the gazes of the others. He continued to sit cross-legged and did his best to cultivate the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer. This fellow is trying to make a last-minute effort again. How foolish. The others watched coldly as Xiao Chen moved. After a few taunts, they ignored him. The facts had already proven that comprehending the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer in battle was very helpful. Hence, Xiao Chen did not need to care about the gazes of the others. The matches began. This day's matches were even more intense than the previous 2 days. The first 10-odd people did not manage to obtain even half of their victories. After 18 matches, even Yunping only managed to obtain 9 victories. This was not surprising. After all, he had fought so many matches in a row. The people in the spectator stands were already familiar with the unique characteristics of their martial techniques. If they were not like Xiao Chen, thinking about every match, the matches on the second day would be incredibly difficult. It was reasonable for them to lose. Strange, they have already changed so many numbers. Why is that Xiao Chen not going up yet? Why do you care about him? Maybe they changed their numbers. You did not even bet on him. Look, Ding Fengqiu is coming up. That's right. I bet 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones on Ding Fengqiu. I bet that he can win 50 matches in a row. Ha ha. You are too timid. I bet 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones that he can win 60 matches in a row. The payout is double yours. Ha ha. You are too timid. I bet 10,000 medial-grade spirit stones that he can win 60 matches in a row. The payout is double yours. Some of the spectators felt that it was strange that Xiao Chen did not go up. However, it did not cause too much of a commotion. When the popular Ding Fengqiu went up, all the questions about Xiao Chen were forgotten. Dong! 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 When Ding Fengqiu entered the arena, he felt the atmosphere of the crowd. The drums in the surroundings suddenly exploded out. In the 28 matches, Ding Fengqiu dealt with his opponents within 50 moves. He used the Heavenly Gate defensive sword technique to kill people from a kilometer away. Ding Fengqiu easily obtained victory without suffering any injuries. He was very popular. He was also the most popular candidate on the betting lists. I am Ding Fengqiu of the Great Chu Nation's Heavenly Sword Gate. Please give me your guidance. The white-robed Ding Fengqiu held a sword and cupped his hands. Right after Ding Fengqiu spoke, someone immediately came down to challenge him. Now that Ding Fengqiu had won 28 matches in a row, the reward for defeating him would be enough to tempt some ordinary experts. Bai Yunfeng, sorry for the offense. The person who came was also a swordsman. Right after he spoke, he took the initiative to attack. He quickly rushed at Ding Fengqiu. With the Heavenly Sword technique, once Bai Yunfeng put some distance between them, he would not lose. He would only have a chance if he got close. Ding Fengqiu pushed off the ground. Contrary to Bai Yunfeng's expectations, he rushed at him as well. A surging sword intent surged out. Before his sword was drawn, a sharp light already appeared. Xiao! Ding Fengqiu used 2 fingers as a sword and pointed them forward. 18 blade-like sword chi appeared behind him. Wang! Wang! The sword chi buzzed in the air like they were real weapons. They carried a sharp state of massacre and kicked up 18 strong winds as they flew at Bai Yunfeng. Ding dang! Ding dang! Bai Yunfeng's expression changed slightly as he retreated. The weapons clashed with the sword qi, giving off metallic clangs and countless sparks. Using qi as a sword. An expert in the spectator stands exclaimed in shock. Using qi as a sword was an extremely profound technique in the heavenly sword technique. It turned the air into a sharp sword and could be used at will. This technique had nothing to do with cultivation realm or talent. Instead, it had a very high requirement for comprehension ability. Rumor had it that after it reached great perfection, a sword sage could create tens of thousands of qi swords out of thin air. The qi swords were very solid, containing the will of the cultivator. Chapter 443. With 10,000 swords, no matter how strong a person was, they would be riddled with holes. Under Ding Fengqiu's control, the 18 qi swords danced around and formed a storm of swords, forcing Bai Yunfeng to retreat continuously. Pu ci. Pu ci. The qi swords were astonishingly fast and there were many of them. Bai Yunfeng could only do his best to protect his vital points. The other parts of his body were injured by the swords, bleeding profusely. Combine! Ding Fengqiu shouted and his aura suddenly gathered. The 18 qi swords merged and formed a real sword in the air. A scarlet light spread out on the sword. That was Ding Fengqiu's strong state of massacre. He quickly formed hand seals with his right hand. The scarlet sword moved like a beam of light and flashed by. A bloody hole appeared in Bai Yunfeng's chest. He vomited a mouthful of blood and fell over. Boom! 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 Ding Fengqiu easily defeated Bai Yunfeng and used qi as a sword to end his opponent with one strike. Such strength caused the crowd to erupt into an uproar. Defeat, defeat, defeat! The defensive sword technique used qi to control the sword. It could be executed alternately or at the same time. Ding Fengqiu's aura soared into the sky along with the golden cauldron drum. He won 18 consecutive victories. Including the victories of the first 2 days, Ding Fengqiu had 46 consecutive victories. He was only 14 more victories away from tying the highest record in the history of Wrestling City. Following that, more contestants went up. However, Ding Fengqiu suppressed them, they could not pique the crowd's interest. Only when Jiang Zimo went up did the atmosphere become lively again. Jiang Zimo did not disappoint the crowd. Although he did not have it as easy as Ding Fengqiu, who only used 50 moves in each match, Jiang Zimo performed very steadily from start to finish. He obtained the final victory and became the second contestant to obtain 46 consecutive victories. However, the next contestant from the Holy Fire Manor, Ling Yun, was not as lucky. Someone found his weakness and ended his winning streak. It was a pity. Xia Xian also ran into an extremely strong bladesman. The two of them fought an intense battle for hundreds of rounds, they were evenly matched. In the end, they could only end up in a draw. According to the rules, their winning streak ended as well. Gao Yangyu rushed into the tall tower, looking travel-worn. He quickly said, "Are we late? Has that brat gone up yet?" Someone immediately replied, "Not too late." As instructed, he was moved to the end. The desolate city was very far from Longyang Island. With Gao Yangyu's strength, he would need to find someone to go back and forth. One night would not be enough. Therefore, he could only come up with this plan and move Xiao Chen's order to the last. Gao Yangyu said, "Did this kid ask why?" "No, it was very peaceful." Gao Yangyu laughed softly, "This brat is rather tactful. He knows who is in charge here." "City Lord, are there no problems this time?" the old man asked with interest. Someone who could make Gao Yangyu personally go to Desolate City to look for was definitely not simple. Gao Yangyu nodded gently and said coldly, 40,000 meteor-grade spirit stones to borrow someone from the wrestling ring in Desolate City. He cultivates a peak Earth-ranked fist technique. His physical body and speed are pretty good. I can't be bothered to continue playing with him. Let's just cripple him in one match, Gao Yangyu said casually. The setting sun was like fire, illuminating the clouds in the sky. The matches in the wrestling ring were slowly coming to an end. The gray-robed old man looked at Xiao Chen, who was in the corner, and said, "Number 125, it is your turn." Xiao Chen opened his eyes and glanced at the old man indifferently. Then, he slowly walked into the wrestling ring. When the gray-robed old man saw Xiao Chen's expression, he was astonished. Why does it seem like every time this brat meditates, his strength improves a little? Furthermore, Xiao Chen is clearly only an inferior-grade martial king. Yet, the gray-robed old man could not understand him, he could not understand him. I am the great Qin nation's Xiao Chen. Please give me your guidance. Xiao Chen's voice, which was neither soft nor loud, resounded in the wrestling ring. It immediately caused a commotion. I nearly forgot about this brat. I thought he had withdrawn from the competition and was about to leave. Indeed, no matter what, he is now one of the 5 people with consecutive victories. I wonder if he can maintain this. Haha, I would like to know as well. This fellow always looks like he is using his full power. However, in the end, he is able to pull through. It is truly unfathomable. As the wrestling ring came to an end, many of the spectators already had thoughts of withdrawing. When they saw Xiao Chen, they became more interested. Bang! A cultivator in black robes shot out from the spectator stands. After he landed, his sharp aura immediately created a whirlwind in the wrestling ring, causing Xiao Chen's hair to flutter. I am the Desolate City's Baijian. I am here to seek advice from you. Baijian took out a pair of shiny metal gloves and slowly put them on. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he looked at Xiao Chen coldly. Unexpectedly, Baijian was a cultivator from the Desolate City. Furthermore, he was a boxing master that specialized in dealing with Xiao Chen. Suddenly, Xiao Chen understood why he changed his iron medallion to number 125. This Gao Yangyu really put in a lot of effort. Xiao Chen raised his head and looked at a tall tower in the distance. There was a pair of eyes looking at him coldly from there. Every time he appeared, he could clearly feel it. When Gao Yangyu saw Xiao Chen's gaze in the tall tower, he felt a strange chill. He shook his head and dispelled this chill. Gao Yangyu smiled coldly and said, "No matter how much you struggle, you will not have a chance this time. This is a boxing master that specializes in dealing with you. You have no chance in terms of punches and kicks." Boom! There was an explosion and a strong wind blew in the air. Baijian had already put on his gloves and was sending a punch at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's feet were firmly glued to the ground as he looked at this punch. Then, he used his right fist, which was covered in a black glove, to meet the punch. Bang! When the two fists met, there was a violent tremor. The air seemed to stop flowing for an instant. In the next moment, it exploded. Countless spider-like cracks appeared on the ground around the two of them. Pieces of rock floated up into the air before exploding and turning into dust. A strong wind blew and kicked up the dust, covering the two's figures. The crowd's vision was immediately affected. Boom! 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 Suddenly, Baijian shouted 3 times and punched. 3 waves of energy surged out, each wave stronger than the one before. The two, who were originally evenly matched, immediately lost their balance. This sudden burst of energy forced Xiao Chen to take 3 steps back. The qi and blood in his body could not help but surge. Finally, the 3 waves of energy merged together and exploded out with an even stronger force. Baijian's body left the ground. This ferocious and berserk punch was like a falcon hunting its prey. It chased closely after Xiao Chen, whose qi and blood were surging. Baijian's gaze was cold and calm, there were no fluctuations at all. In his eyes, Xiao Chen was just prey. Bai Zhan only had one goal, to injure and cripple Xiao Chen, not giving him a chance to admit defeat. In a rush, Xiao Chen could only merge his essence and vital qi. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched again. Bang! Countless long gorges appeared on the ground. The energy from the collision of the two fists kicked up an even stronger storm. Sand and rocks flew everywhere, and a strong wind howled. Xiao Chen retreated again. This time, he took more than 10 steps back before he could stand stably. Blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. Although Bai Zhan's fist force was not as strong as Xiao Chen's, by stacking 3 layers of energy and using this technique, Xiao Chen could not clash head-on with his essence and vital qi. Bang! 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 Bai Zhan did not show any mercy when he gained the upper hand. He quickly pressed forward and sent out hundreds of fist images with his fists, attacking Xiao Chen relentlessly. Bai Zhan controlled the rhythm of the fight. Xiao Chen could only follow his attacks. However, the gloves in Bai Zhan's hands seemed to be a secret treasure. His attack speed was even faster than Xiao Chen's. Xiao Chen was at a complete disadvantage. After exchanging a few hundred moves, half of Bai Zhan's fist winds landed on him, forcing him to retreat. Strong explosive power, brilliant techniques, lightning-fast attack speed, and an incredibly calm mental state. In terms of fist techniques, Bai Zhan completely suppressed Xiao Chen. Interesting. It looks like he is not satisfied until I die. Bai Zhan used his full power in every move. It was clear that he would not stop until he crippled Xiao Chen. If he made any mistakes, he would not be able to recover from this setback. He would lose countless times in a row. Xiao Chen smiled coldly to himself. Unfortunately, I was never a fist master. Using a fist master to deal with me? Isn't that a joke? Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations, split. After retreating for a long time, Xiao Chen's figure suddenly flickered, and he split into 9 clones. These clones headed in 9 different directions, quickly escaping from Bai Zhan's attacks. The 9 clones looked exactly the same. Amidst the dust and chaotic winds, it was hard to tell which one was the real one. Bai Zhan mocked, cloning techniques are unorthodox. Before absolute strength and speed, they are useless. Why are you, a fist master, learning this? Break for me. Xiao Chen said calmly, absolute speed. Do you have it? Blood Flame Shoe's secret technique, activate. Xiao Chen shouted, and the black-winged blood flame eagle patterns on his shoes suddenly lit up. Suddenly, Xiao Chen's speed increased by 4 times the speed of sound. Ka-Xie. The instant the 9 clones merged, a saber appeared in Xiao Chen's hand. The saber's edge was sharp, and it gave off a cold light. He quickly executed drawing the saber. A dazzling bolt of lightning flashed through the air filled with dust. Xiao Chen wanted to hack Bai Zhan in half with his saber. Bai Zhan's previously relaxed face revealed a horrified expression. Damn it! Why didn't Gao Yangyu tell me that this fellow is a bladesman? Bai Zhan's punch was extremely fast. Originally, he had intended to break all of Xiao Chen's clones in one go. However, he had not expected that Xiao Chen did not even think of using his clones to confuse him. Xiao Chen used an even faster speed to clash with Bai Zhan's attack. Furthermore, it was not a fist technique but a saber technique with a startling aura. Even if Bai Zhan wanted to retreat, he did not have the opportunity to do so. His opponent's explosive speed reached 4 times the speed of sound. It was not something that Bai Zhan could dodge. He could only do his best to avoid being hit in the vital areas. Ah! A miserable cry resounded, accompanied by a spurt of blood. Xiao Chen's saber strike chopped off one of Bai Zhan's arms. Bai Zhan lay on the ground, his left hand covering his wound. He trembled as he said, "How hateful. You are actually not a fist master." When fist masters fought with fist masters, when fist masters fought with bladesmen, they all had different strategies. Furthermore, they were two completely different sets of strategies. Bai Zhan had used the strategy of fighting a fist master against a bladesman. It would be difficult for him not to suffer a tragedy. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "Sorry, I never said that I was a fist master." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.